okay, you're a Chinese company and you want to litigate a competitor in the United States. You can hire an American lawyer and sue the crap out of that American company. Try and do that in China. You don't have a reciprocal right to do that. You cannot do that in China. So my attitude is, okay, Chinese company, if you're a controlled Chinese company, controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, you can't use the American legal system, not until you give us reciprocal rights. I'm sorry, you're just shut off. Now, here's another one. If you go and look on the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange, there's $800 billion worth of market capitalization of Chinese companies that don't comply by American GAAP laws. I have to comply. I have to pay millions of dollars to actually comply with the rules of the SEC and all the other regulators. The Chinese guys don't.
If I could just give context, GAAP is the accounting standard that the U.S. country uses, and every company that's listed in the stock exchange needs to have audited financial statements yearly that are in compliance with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles.
Right, but except unless you're Chinese. Apparently, if you're a Chinese company, you don't have to, right? You get to play by your own rules, right? Like, everyone else has got to play by the U.S. rules. But if you're a Chinese company and you want to be in the U.S. market, guess what? You don't have to play by the rules. And if we want to go over there and do business in China, we get nothing. It's like, hey, we're like subhuman almost, right? So, there's a huge barriers, huge difference here. So it's not only just tariffs. So any kind of deal, I know we talked like last time about IP law and different, IP rights, and wherever you stand on the spectrum of what you think is right or wrong there, they are absolutely stealing trade secrets and kind of doing all these different things and doing dishonest things. So the reciprocity is key, right? Like even with social media platforms, like they can have TikTok and whatever, all these different platforms here historically, right? But if we want to have platforms in their market, no, right? Like they ban certain things and do all that. So reciprocity really is the key. The Runway. A lot going on this week, guys. A lot going on this week. What do you guys think about, it looks like Paul has up here some of the stuff about Fauci. Obviously, we've pretty much known how bad the lies and all the stuff was, and this is no surprise to many of us, right? Like, the second I heard the whole, the psyop about, oh, it's a conspiracy theory that it came out of the lab. It's like the whole Jon Stewart thing when he's like, there's literally a coronavirus lab right in this city right here. Like, I think a lot of us didn't buy the bullshit for 1 second.
It depends what you mean. When you say we didn't buy it, like people in Florida, no, not so much. People on the West Coast, they bought it up. I know people in academia all over that were just like, bought it hook, line, and sinker. I'm just like, well, you're just like literally. How can you even say we don't actually know what the origin is? How can you say that this is a conspiracy theory when this lab is right here? Like it's Occam's razor, right? Like it was just even the fact that you couldn't ask a question or just have any doubt. It's like, if you're crazy. Like, I'm not sure, this seems a little weird. It's like, no, you're evil.
Yeah.
Just immediate.
Yeah, I think the silencing during that period was absolutely wild. People were just asking questions, just curious, and instantly
shut up, you conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
Quiet.
It shows
misinformation.
It shows that all of the academics are terrible academics, because the first thing you should do is assume that you're not sure. Unless it's your exact field of expertise that you've studied for a decade, just have some willingness to say, I don't know. And none of those people could do that for years. I don't think they still can do it.
They didn't only silence like the people, like you couldn't write something on Facebook about it because you'd get flagged or whatever, but like educated people, doctors, they weren't letting them talk about it on X at the time. And we know why. The same reason that Elon purchased X. But that was real interesting why, not being able to even speak about it or say the C word.
So it seems that the powers to be, the Faucis and all of his compatriots and these other government positions in different countries in China, et cetera, the intelligentsia, if you will, it seems like they knew very early on that it probably came from here, and this was actually a huge cover up. Like they actively worked to cover this up.
Where's that that plan they had in like October that they did a test run, and just like a simulation, like, if this happened, what would we do? That they tested in September, October. I can't remember
the thing. Like the thing about those for me is like they do that shit all the time. So it's like,
like the U.S. government has the army has a plan in case zombies become real. Battle plans.
Yeah. So like when the shit actually happens, you're like, oh look, they did a battle scenario for this, right? It's like you know.
But still, it's, hey, they did that 2 months before we had one.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Yeah, I that to me is not suspicious, just because same people have been crying and screaming the same thing for so long.
It could have been coincidence. I fully acknowledge that, but I'm also going to say that was coincidental.
It's something to look at for sure.
I think whenever the government or the elites sort of try to quash something so fast, that's when a lot of people start to say, "Oh, hold on, let me double click here. I want to dig in a little bit more.
Dig in a little bit more here."
I remember I was living in New York City during the early days of COVID, and there was Nancy Pelosi in Chinatown basically being like, "We can't be racist. Like, this did not come from them." Like, and it was just a total everybody sort of joined rank and file. And was saying the same thing.
Are you guys working for the Chinese Communist Party now, or are you actually working for Americans? Right?
Well, I remember when it first broke the news, they're saying, "Oh, we got to shut down travel to China," and then Trump's like, "Yeah, we need to shut down travel," and they flipped on a dime.
Like, "Oh, he's a racist."
Yeah,
that's crazy. All right, Paul, why don't you take us to our next story here? Pull up the bookmarks.
Let's do it.
Let's dive in here.
So this is an interesting.
That was just kind of more. They actually put it on the White House website now that they think that the true origins of COVID, the lab leak. They got a picture of Trump on there. That's too funny. So yeah, they're actually putting it on the website, the government website now. They're like, hey, this probably came from a lab, right? Which many of us pretty much already knew. What do you got next? Oh yeah, play this clip here. So this is Kevin O'Leary talking on a podcast. Let's actually watch this live and react to it, because this kind of has to do with the tariffs and the trade war between China and the U.S. But I think he actually highlights a couple things that most people don't know. Most people think it's like just tariffs. Like, okay, why? It's there's really all these other barriers for American businesses and for Americans, where like we make all these exceptions for them, but then if our citizens want to go to their market, or if we want to have a business there, we want to do all these things. No. Like, it's rules for thee, but not for me. And I think that strikes at the heart of why the Trump administration and everybody in general are saying, hey, there's all these barriers here. It's a double standard. It's not reciprocal, right? I think reciprocity is the key. But let's watch this real quick and kind of see the take. I thought this was a good, insightful clip.
You said they don't comply. We have rules, laws, regulations about this. Why have we gone soft on all that?
Try and enforce them. Okay, you're a Chinese company, and you want to litigate a competitor in the United States. You can hire an American lawyer and sue the crap out of that American company. Try and do that in China. You don't have a reciprocal right to do that. You cannot do that in China. So my attitude is, okay, Chinese company, if you're a controlled Chinese company, controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, you can't use the American legal system, not until you give us reciprocal rights. I'm sorry, you're just shut off. Now, here's another one. If you go and look on the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange, there's $800 billion worth of market capitalization of Chinese companies that don't comply by American GAAP laws. I have to comply. I have to pay millions of dollars to actually comply with the rules of the SEC and all the other regulators. The Chinese guys don't, and they get to raise money. So when I'm trying to raise dollars, I'm competing with a Chinese company that doesn't even comply. I mean, how's that even legal?
Donald Trump's on your speed dial. Does he get this?
Yes, and the good news there is they just brought a new sheriff into town. He's just got approved. His name is Paul Atkins. He's the new head of the SEC, and he will finally make these companies comply. There's a law on the books that was brought out 4 years ago by Rick Scott, senator from Florida, that says if you're a Chinese company, you're not complying with GAAP, you have 36 months to comply. Then he tightened the law, made it 24 months. And if you don't comply, you're delisted. So I'm asking, and I went to the Hill last week, I said to Atkins, hey, are you going to enforce this law? Because I got no problem competing with any company that I have to play in the same level playing field with. And he said, yeah, we're going to start delisting these companies finally. And that Rick Scott sent him a letter that he made public last week saying, hey, look, do your job, because if you don't, I'm going to make a lot of noise. And I think that's what Atkins is going to do.
If I could just give context, GAAP is the accounting standard that the U.S. country uses, and every company that's listed in the stock exchange needs to have audited financial statements yearly that are in compliance with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles.
Right, but except unless you're Chinese. Apparently, for a Chinese company, you don't have to, right? You get to play by your own rules, right? Like, everyone else has got to play by the U.S. rules. But if you're a Chinese company and you want to be in the U.S. market, guess what? You don't have to play by the rules. And if we want to go over there and do business in China, we get nothing. It's like, hey, we're like subhuman almost, right? So, there's a huge barriers, huge difference here. So it's not only just tariffs. So any kind of deal, I know we talked like last time about IP law and different, IP rights and, wherever you stand on the spectrum of what you think is right or wrong there, they are absolutely stealing trade secrets and kind of doing all these different things and, doing dishonest things. So, the reciprocity is key, right? Like even with social media platforms, like they can have TikTok and whatever, all these different platforms here historically, right? But if we want to have platforms in their market, no, right? Like they ban certain things and do all that. So reciprocity really is the key. And I think hopefully they do get a deal worked out that it makes things fair, puts things on an even playing field, I think. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, 50 years ago, we discovered the concept of predatory pricing, where companies were taking advantage by basically undercutting everyone else. And China is sort of bending the rules to their favor, leveraging a lot of things to their advantage to basically decimate, American industries. And so, I mean, I think Trump is trying to do the best he can to rein that in. I think we'll see how it plays out. I thought Craig had some really great points, both on sort of the tariffs and a little bit of the trade war going on earlier in the week. But yeah, I mean, the reality is China's been doing this for 30 years.
Yeah, I think both sides have some leverage. Honestly, the more I look into it, the more I think about it, and I think why not make a deal that is fair for everybody? That's the way I look at it.
Well, I mean, it's just everyone has to be trying to play the game in good faith, and I feel like that's in short supply nowadays. China obviously has been trying to manipulate everything. I'm not going to say U.S. companies have been doing the greatest either, better than China. I'm not going to try and make that argument, but it's just everyone's trying to screw each other over and keep themselves up on top.
Yeah. All right, Paul, why don't you move us to the next segment? There we go. This is God. Have you guys been following this Kilmar Brego guy, this MS-13 gang member?
Yeah, I've been following it. Not like super close, but yeah, I've kept my eye on it.
Seems like I just can't believe this is real. Like this is like such a crazy hill to die on. Like, well, they're trying to die on this hill. It's like this guy literally is determined to be MS-13 by two different courts at two different points. His wife, now they've released, wrote a written letter about how he beat the shit out of her. I mean, so he beat her up and she wanted protective something. He's got, they found him on the side of, with a van of 7 unidentified people in the back, and they just let him go. And then, he's with other MS-13 gang people. If
you wanted a dictionary definition of fake news and how they operate, that story right there, because they keep saying Maryland man,
Maryland man, who was an MS-13 gang member and who's hung out with, been associated with many, has a nickname called Chicle, which is his gang name. Literally beat the shit out of his wife. That's been documented. She filed and wrote the report about it.
Yeah, and they keep calling him Maryland man, which is just a bald-faced lie.
That's not him, is it?
Wait, so what's the backstory?
No, it's not him.
I'm not up to speed.
You don't have to speed on this? Oh, no. This has been a huge thing in the news right now. So there's this guy, I guess, and there's questions of due process, and there's much deeper questions at bay.
I'm gonna touch on that on this.
Yeah, so the question is he's an illegal alien that came, I guess, here to the United States in 2011. He's been here illegally. The courts arrested him at some point. They found out they basically denied his bond because there was evidence that he was in part of MS-13.
Well, he had a
so that was they had a deportation order as well.
But
in this whole thing.
But it was stayed because he was going to be in danger if he went back to El Salvador.
He claimed that if he went back to El Salvador, that he would, he was supposed to be deported. He was in a gang. Then he claimed, I can't go back because I'm in a gang and they'll kill me or whatever. So they just stayed the deportation order. And then I think another court ruled something he's got to go back. And here we are 15 years later, this guy's still here. They found him. They found this guy with other MS-13 gang members, and they wrote all their name. I mean, the Trump administration played it really well. They waited until this Democrat senator flew to El Salvador to go have sip margaritas with the guy. And they released all this evidence that's his wife writing or his girlfriend, wife, whatever, writing a report that he beat the shit out of her. She's scared for her life. He regularly beats her, and that they've had apprehended this individual multiple times, with MS-13 gang members, with his nickname, with like, with a van of like 7 people who like were completely unidentified and like didn't have IDs, nothing. They were like in the back of a car, like just probably importing them or whatever.
Well, funny enough, the senator that went down there is in violation of the Logan Act.
Yeah, I'm not surprised they don't follow it. It's rules for thee, but not for me. It's only convenient to follow the law when it's convenient.
They tried to go after General Flynn in like 2017 for the exact same thing when he was part of the administration. It was just like having preliminary communications with Russia. Like, oh, he's not actually sworn in yet. That's a violation of the Logan Act.
Yeah.
But this guy is clearly going against the administration, and they're like, everyone just shrugged.
So the question is, obviously he was this gang members in El Salvador sipping margaritas with this Democrat senator Nestor. So he must not be in such a bad prison or whatever. But the idea was that like there's no due process, right? Like I agree with you. Hold on, let me just make the case of the other side. I'm trying to play field man here and provide what they want to say, which is that like he didn't get due process and like they just he should have all the rights that an American citizen has, which I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know where I stand on that. I mean, I think there should be some level of human rights that people have, but if you are an American citizen, yes, you get all the rights of the Constitution, due process, etc. But I think if you're a criminal illegal alien who came here illegally, and maybe there's a different set of human rights that you should have, but he went. The whole thing to me is like he's back in his home country where he was supposed to be, and he's obviously a criminal. Can you pull that back up, that clip? I want to play that Stephen Miller clip. I just want like this guy from the Trump administration is like so great at just destroying the narrative. You had it back right there. Can you play that clip? I mean, it is just so good.
We've reached a point in American politics where we have one party led by President Donald Trump that fights for Americans, and a second party, I guess led by AOC, that fights for illegal aliens. But not just illegal aliens, criminal, wife-beating, terrorist illegal aliens. 2 immigration judges, as you said, found that he was a member of MS-13, as did the arresting police department here nearby in Prince George's County. On top of that, we have, of course, the protective order filed by his wife, alleging horrific, multiple instances.
There were 2?
Yes, of extreme, violent, physical abuse. And then on top of all of that, he's an illegal alien and a member of what has been designated as a foreign terrorist organization. You have the entire machinery of the Democrat Party using all of its power not to fight for lower costs, as President Trump is, or better trade deals, as President Trump is, or lower taxes, as President Trump is, but to fight to bring this illegal alien with all those horrific crimes and allegations and history against him back to the United States, where he can do what? He can commit additional acts that threaten the safety of the American people. This is the biggest, sharpest contrast you will ever see between the priorities of President Trump and the priorities of the Democrat Party.
I mean, it is. You can't even make this shit up. I mean, it's insane.
No,
right? I can't. How are we even living in reality right now?
Yeah, I mean, hearing this story for the first time, I'm like, I don't understand.
Well, the whole narrative was like
worse than that, because he didn't talk about how the activist judges that ruled that the president has to make his best efforts to go to El Salvador and request an El Salvadorian citizen be extradited back to the U.S. That's an argument they're making.
Yeah, it's literally reached a level of lunacy that I can't even comprehend. I mean, this is insane. I mean, literally insane.
They hate Americans.
It really. I mean, it's. I can't even fathom. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's so absurd that this is where we're at right now.
They were saying that they didn't get any due process. They got judges and review of the evidence and everything.
That was what all the people, left-wing people were saying on Twitter yesterday. They're like, oh, this is, not true, this court case. And then yesterday when this guy flew to El Salvador, they just dropped the mother load of like the wife beating and all this other stuff on top of it.
Oh, so I mean, I feel like
the human
you should get due process, but how much due process you get's going to depend. Like if you're human, you get a certain level, obviously.
I think so, yeah.
If you're a resident, a legal resident, you get another level. Yeah. And if you're a citizen, you get the highest amount.
I agree.
He's an illegal alien.
I think you're right.
So they went and looked over the evidence and said, he is he illegally. We got evidence. We supported that. Deport him.
Yeah.
And so he got due process. They just claim he didn't because they don't like the results.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole process for asylum. I mean, if you're worried about being sent back before they deport you, they have to go through the reins and basically.
Yeah. Well, initially he said like, "Are you worried that you're going to be?" He claimed asylum, and then they got him on record saying like, "Oh, I'm not worried. I'll be fine if I go back." And then he got a lawyer, and the lawyer's like, "Oh no, he's actually scared." It's a whole big fucking scheme of fucking bullshit that's happened in this thing. But yeah, I mean, you know, obviously, and in the meantime, he's like getting arrested with MS-13 gang members. He has his MS-13 nickname Chicle. He's beating up his wife, and she's filing police protective custody reports. You know, the taxpayers, of course, are having to pay for all this. You know, just total fucking craziness.
And then
they found him again. They pulled him over with 7 unidentified people in a van, and they somehow let him go again.
And Democrats are also claiming that Trump sent him to an El Salvadorian prison, which he didn't. He just deported him to El Salvador, and El Salvador has laws that if you're an MS-13 member, you go to jail.
Yeah,
he's in prison because of El Salvador laws.
Well, apparently not. He apparently he's not in prison. Apparently he's hanging out drinking margaritas.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought they like let him out for an interview.
Maybe they let him out for, I don't know what it is, but he's just like, you know, he seemed he didn't seem like he was on a diet. He had a nice little bigger belly than me, and you know, he's sipping the margaritas with Holland. Classic.
Yeah, it beggars belief that this is real.
Yeah, you almost can't even make this up. I kept trying to like do more research on it because I'm like, this can't be real. Like, this can't really be this crazy.
Yeah.
Like, but this is like, I don't know what it is. It's just insane. We're like, but it makes sense because I think the Democratic Party approval rating is at 21% or something like that. I mean,
but like,
this is why.
How do you pick a topic like this and be like, this is what
this is the hill we're going to die on?
Because there's so many other things.
Yeah, I think at first they didn't think that all the evidence existed about how bad he was, and they were just trying to say, oh, Trump's just deporting people willy nilly and sending him to El Salvador mega prisons, right? I think that was the initial argument. Like, there's no due process. Like, he's a nice Maryland man with 3 kids or whatever. Like, that was the whole narrative. But then like, slowly the Trump administration was like, no, he's here's the court orders. He was fucking MS-13, and they didn't even give him bond. And then, oh, well, this isn't a real court order. And then next step was like, we're going to go to El Salvador, these Democratic politicians, we're going to go to El Salvador and visit this guy and make sure he's okay. And then boom, once the guy went on the plane to go to El Salvador, then they dropped the mother load of all the evidence.
Right.
Like,
Trump just sat on the evidence and waited for them to tie their own
Yeah,
noose.
he basically waited. Yeah. So now they're like, you're in this position like that. And again, that this video really like encapsulates this 1-minute clip of Stephen Miller. He like literally just lays it all out. It's like, you're just in this absurd position. And Trump's like the master of this. Like, you know, he's the master of like getting these like 90-10, 80-20 issues and just like letting them hang themselves with these issues. Like, it just it's, you know, whatever you think about Trump, whether you love him or hate him, I mean, he's not this fucking crazy.
Well, not only on this as well. I was listening to a story earlier, and it was like in December, I think it was like 40% of America thought we were going the wrong way with our immigration policy.
Mm-hmm.
And as of like last month, it's like 10% think we're going the right way. Like, we're heading in the right direction. So it's a 50-point swing the entire way around. And so people aren't calling it a pressing issue anymore because we've got Trump in there. Like, all right, he's going to take care of it.
Yeah, I mean, the data is like 98% down or whatever, like illegal crossings and stuff. I mean, like, and then like the narrative previously was like, we need to pass all this new law, and it was like a bunch of money that had nothing to do with the fucking border, and like 5% of it was the border, 95% of it was like more money for Ukraine and all these other places,
and it legalized border crossings for illegal immigrants. It's like, oh, we've removed illegal immigration.
Yeah,
just removing the illegal part.
It's legal now. This is all legal immigration now.
Exactly.
Yeah, just a crazy one, right? Like, and I'm sure like many of us, I personally want to see like a more streamlined immigration. If people want to come in, they're good people, like provide value to the United States. What's best for the U.S.? Like, you know, let's fix the process. I think it does need to be fixed, but we can't just have this crazy lawlessness.
And also just
essentially treason,
getting them to assimilate to American culture, American ways of life. It's not come here, set up your own, you know, enclave of immigrants and then try and import your country into this country.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what's happening in London and a lot of these places over there where it's like there's a lot of Muslims being imported there, and now they're, you know, hey, we're teaching you know, the Quran in school now.
I think
the public education system.
I think a guy got arrested for yelling at
Sharia courts and all sorts of stuff.
An Englishman got arrested for yelling at an immigrant to speak English in England.
No, there was a video of it. He just said, you know, go England, go England. He was walking next to this like
could be more than one story.
Whatever protest, the Muslim protest, and they literally arrested the guy. He was just saying like, you know, I'm here for England. I'm here for England or something like that. Like, he was just saying that, like, yeah, England. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, so this is another story I thought was fascinating too. It's like you know,
fascinating, blood boiling.
The Palestinians can no longer fund its military and political staff after losing more than 70% of its funding from U.S. aid. So in total financial collapse, it can no longer pay salaries. Leaders are saying the loss of U.S. funding is worse than the war with Israel. So a lot of people are like, why are we giving all this? And people are always like, why are we giving money here? Why are we giving this money to Israel? Why are we always paying Israel? It's like, we're paying fucking everybody. We're literally like, Trump had a quote. He had a tweet I saw the other day from like 2014. He's like, God, I hope we don't find alien life, because if we do, the U.S. will find a way to send the money. I think that just like encapsulates that. Like, yeah, I mean, like this is central to what's happening in the Middle East too, right? Like the Houthis are, we got their funding cut off because of, you know, the stranglehold that was on Iran from the previous administration. It was like a lot of the terrorism, like we wiped out ISIS when Trump came in last time. A lot of the terrorism stopped. It's because he strangled off the funding sources with Iran and these other places. And like, you know, the previous 4 years, they loosened it all up. And then now you've got all this fucking chaos in the Middle East again. And now we're going to just tighten the noose again, right? Like no more funding, no more money for this bullshit. Like it's US aid, yeah, and then it ends up in the fucking hands of Hamas cutting people's heads off, right? Or whoever, right? So, you know, the Houthis bombing ships and blowing up, you know, European ships and American ships and whatever that's trying to go through the Red Sea. No more. We're that ain't happening anymore. And I hope Doge keeps looking into this and cuts it off for all this stuff. I mean, American money should be going to Americans who pay that money, right? Like just common sense, right? Like American interest, that's, you know, just like any other country should use their tax revenue to support their own interests, right? We can have alliances, we can have trade, we can have all this other stuff, but like taxpayer money should be funding the interests of Americans, not all this other nonsense. So
I also think there needs to be an element of transparency where it's like, I'm not opposed to the government making a decision, oh, we need to give money this particular circumstance, but it needs to be done in a way where at least taxpayers can know.
Yeah, there's no transparency at all. It's an NGO slush fund, and it's like
exactly,
it's totally insane.
It's like
none of it goes to the source.
Money. Some person's like, sure, we'll dish this out.
I'm going to push back and say no. It shouldn't be a thing. The most that should be allowable is a congressman to put out a statement saying, "Hey, there's this group that I've been dealing with for whatever issue, and they need funding. Let's try and raise money and help out these group of people, and maybe help facilitate it or something like that." But once you start giving them permission to start sending money to people around the country, they're going to send it to outside of the country. They'll send it to everyone.
Yeah,
I mean, favors as hard as they can.
I'm opposed to there being a due process for how it's done, but the moral is I just think that like
transparency. Yeah.
There may be a moment in which we have to do something like that, but it needs to be disclosed. It needs to be something people can see, can read, can make their own decisions about.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Jeff?
I think we should pay our teachers more.
Yeah. No, we can't. We have to fund we have to fund Israel. We have to fund Palestine. We have to fund, you know, the Houthis. We got to fund all these different, the Taliban apparently too are on the payroll. It's like and we're literally funding everything.
And I see,
and it's all just taxpayer money getting laundered through these fucking NGOs.
I see what some of these teachers are teaching kids, and I don't want to pay them more money. I want to pay them less because of it.
Yeah, we have to. That's a good point as well. I mean, there's got to be some kind of like merit focused approach for, like, you know, teachers are rated on their outcomes of educational proficiency.
Right, but how do you define a good outcome?
That's a good question, right?
Devil in the detail.
Yeah. I believe if we pay a good salary to a teacher, it'll entice more, you know, educated people that want to teach, be a part of the community.
Well,
I think it'll.
As we were talking about earlier, the educated people were the problem. The ones not being able to see that COVID was from the lab. Those were all the educated people saying, "Oh no, it was the Wuhan wet lab," and all the uneducated people were saying, "No, all this was from that virus."
All the fucking street smart people were like, "Yo, this is like," even Josh Stewart's like, "Yo, something fucking smells here. Something funky's going on here, right?" So that's absolutely a big part of it. But I think there should be some objective criteria where teachers can get higher pay based on their student outputs. And, you know, there was like this big push against this, like a standardized test scores or whatever, like, you know, years ago. But like, honestly, like that's probably the best metric. Like, do your kids actually know stuff? Can they actually succeed in the world? Right. Like,
well, I believe the way they were testing it was just how many of your students got high grades. So if they got A's, that was the best funding. When the metric should have been more like, all right, you received them at this age.
Yeah.
In the next 2 or 3 years, like let's say they first come in, they test at C's.
Mm-hmm.
In the next year or two, can you get them testing up to B's? That should be what we're doing. Progress.
I like that. Yeah.
Not just, are they A's, yes or no?
Yeah. It's each individual that, you know, did your students improve overall, all of them, right?
Yeah. Not just back to the highest standard, because that way it gets teachers just filling in answers so they get more funding.
Yeah. That was, did you ever read that? What book was that? I think it was like Freakonomics or something like that.
I just remember
they talked about it in like Chicago when they did that. And like, they found out teachers, like they caught the teachers because they found out like, they would only like do certain questions and stuff. It was like some elaborate scheme how they caught like the cheaters that were trying to get higher scores.
Mm-hmm.
So they wouldn't be able to change everything, but they like consistently changed like one answer or 2 or 3 answers that statistically like raised the grade just enough. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think it needs to be an individual thing, but there has to be some objective. I mean, now with AI and all this shit, like, you know, test scores and blockchain, there's got to be a way we can figure out a system that will like evaluate, hey, these students the previous year, like this is what their average grades were. They went to your class and now they're getting all these better grades. And then they all take the final exam or whatever it is, and these tests, and there's like you can see who improved, like what was the improvement here, and then there's got to be some way to put that into to assign a monetary value to that.
Right, but the question always comes:
good teaching.
What should the children be taught?
Well, we're talking. I mean, I'm thinking, math and basic science.
That's racist.
Yeah, I mean that's what you're dealing with in California, but hopefully, other states are not going to act that way. Right?
That's my point, though. Is like, all right, what do we teach them? And these people that are insane are going to say,
I think
learning time management is racist.
I think if we incentivize better math scores, I think math will stop being racist very quickly. If teachers can get more money by actually educating their students and showing proven, metric over time that they've improved test scores and they've improved their students' aptitudes and educational outcomes, I think math and science and being on time will stop being racist very, very quickly. That's what I think. That's my personal opinion.
I think all the different STEM subjects are probably fantastic areas for us to dramatically improve our scores. And I mean, I think going back to like, how do you incentivize? I think that there's always a challenge, right? Where it's like when you make something measurable, everyone tries to game the system a little bit. But you can probably do something where it's like you blend, all teachers together, and there's like a bonus at the end of the year if your school is in the upper echelon, top 30%.
You could do like a team bonus, and you could also do individualized bonus somehow. I think that would be.
I mean, I think the just entire profession of teaching is. Well, and with all the AI stuff, you can have an individualized tutor that will never get tired of your shit.
Yeah.
And can explain it in 19 different ways to help you understand a point, draw illustrations, and do video animations to help illustrate everything. And maybe you might need a human teacher to like.
Well, you got to teach the kids how to use those tools. I mean, like the teachers that my kids has right now is like, and he's at like a private prep school, and most of them are like, AI is the devil. Like, no, like this is the future, and you need to be teaching your kids how to use it, not like telling them how bad it is, right? Like, this is going to be a tool that everybody uses going forward, right? So I think it's just a mindset, and it's a whole holistic approach, right? So if I was a teacher and I was trying to get my kids to have better scores, I'd be teaching them all how to use AI. I'd say, look, here's how to do it. Like, I'm not going to let you cheat, but hey, if you have a question about something, if you want to learn a certain way, or hey, here's how you can ask the AI to help you learn. Not just say, give me the answer. Say like, hey, like, here's my work. How can I be better at this? What did I do wrong? Right? Like that type of stuff. And
I'm not trying to say that AI is perfect. I remember one guy putting an example saying, hey, give it this big, long, like a word problem where it had complex statistics or calculus or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but it made a mistake in its assumptions and missed one of a formula it needed to use to actually get the correct answer. So it gave a wrong answer. So it's not perfect.
Yeah.
But it can teach a 5, 6-year-old how to do basic arithmetic.
It's getting better and better now.
Right,
like those little errors are going away.
And it can do basic arithmetic. It can get them to 10 years old with all the education it needs.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Look at this one. This one was wild. I don't know if this is real or what, but I guess this was a story on Daily Mail. Ohio mayor tells entire school board to resign or face child pornography charges after teachers gave children writing prompts to write a sex scene you wouldn't show your mom. I mean, this is the type of shit that makes me lose faith in a lot of the intelligentsia or
Paul, thank you for bringing up a story that illustrates perfectly why I say maybe we shouldn't give them more money.
You're welcome.
What was the?
There's lots of good.
There's plenty of great teachers though. Like I've had plenty of great teachers throughout my life, so I'm not going to just shit on.
Me too.
Like teachers, but
I have one teacher that I swear by. Yeah. But my point is, like, what are they being taught, or what are they teaching?
Yeah.
What was the assignment? Like, I don't understand. Like, how can this happen?
I think the point is that there's no assignment where this is ever acceptable that you put that on in a kid's writing prompt. I mean, this is the type of shit about like sexualizing children and teaching all this like gender ideology and all this stuff to like young impressionable kids. Like this really just isn't the place. It's not the topic. You shouldn't be having sexual conversations with kids without the parents being involved in that decision, right? Like it's just absurd. It's insane. It's creepy as fuck, honestly. Like it's super fucking creepy. Look at those people's faces. I mean, I don't know like what.
That's zero tolerance. That's not acceptable.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And I think that's why they're trying to get him fired. So look at Grok. What did Grok say? What are the names of the people sitting on the school board? So Grok said, you should ask Grok if this story is true. Fantasy story. I mean, let's dig into this Hudson, Ohio school board mess from the mayor, Craig Schubert, went full scorched earth on the board after some teachers handed out writing prompts that were straight up inappropriate, like asking kids to write sex scenes and pretend they're serial killers. Wild, right? The board members at the time were David Zuro, the president, Mark Patterson, Alyssa Wright, Susan Chaplick, and Stephen DeMauro. They were the ones in the hot seat when this blew up. Zoro even clapped back, saying the board runs the schools, not the mayor. And none of them were planning to resign. I guess they weren't too scared of Schubert's threats. This whole thing had parents fuming, and honestly, I can't blame them. Who thinks it's okay to give minors prompts like that? What a dumpster fire. I guess that's Grok's response. So, yeah, I guess this was something that happened.
I actually saw an interesting story. What was the Chris Hansen story show, How to Catch a Predator?
How to Catch a Predator, yeah.
The thing I was reading said they had to cancel that because they got too many police officers and local like congressmen and whatnot getting trapped in those things.
Jesus Christ.
So they had to stop it.
That's insane. I can't believe that's even true.
I mean, I didn't look much into it, but I could believe it. After this type of crap, I could definitely see it.
I remember hearing they had all kinds of Disney employees and stuff.
Yeah.
Do we think part of the problem is that the salaries are so low that we end up getting teachers that are just, I don't know, pedophiles or?
I mean, if you look at the outcomes,
where everything
of kids,
is. Well, it's not only that. It's like you're a pedophile. What do you want? Little children. Where are they? Schools. That's where they congregate. So where are you going to go try and get a job? Where all of the things you want are. It's just a big honeypot for them. So they're all going to try and go and sign up for it because they want access to the kids.
Crazy. I mean, I think. I know we've looked at this chart before, but if you look at like educational outcomes, and this is the whole argument of like the Department of Education, right? Like the more money that we throw at this thing, like the worse the outcomes are getting. So like money is obviously not the problem, but that being said, obviously for teachers, so part of that I never understood was teachers, like they don't work the full year. So like you're getting paid the salary, but you're only working 7 months, 6 months, 8 months. I don't really quite know, 9 months maybe. Like you're working, part of the year, and then the rest of the time you have summer, you have months off, right? So there's that aspect of things. But then there's also the aspect of how can we incentivize, like we talked about, the good teachers, right? Like improving outcomes. Like there should be a sharp contrast of pay grade where people are getting better outcomes. And I think that solves the problem, right? Like I really think if you use incentives to tweak the system, the question is just how do we get those tweaks right?
Well, you say tweak. I don't think it needs to be a tweak. I think it needs just to be a restructuring from the ground up.
Yeah.
Because all this was built.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. You're 100% right about that. I love that assessment. Yeah, it needs to be redesigned from the fucking ground up. That is literally what needs to happen here. And the question is, why isn't it happening? Right? Like, how can we make it happen?
So,
well, it's just on that subject. The Department of Education was just defunded, so I think that is a massive move in that direction.
Yeah. I mean, more money will go back to the states instead that, you won't have some federal bureaucrats making all these decisions that, obviously are doing absolutely no good whatsoever. That just hasn't worked. It's been an abject failure. So they can cry and whine and complain and have their little union, temper tantrums, but you're making, like, you literally failed. Like, students got dumber over the period of time where you existed. Like, enough's enough.
Assignments,
administration, everything, administration costs, all this money, you got more and more money, and you failed the students. So you're gone, right? Like, now each individual state, let's see what works. I guess that's kind of the whole idea of like individual states and states' rights, that certain states will do things differently. And it's like this grand experiment. We can see what actually works. All right, let's move along here. Glenn Greenwald, major loss for Google and major win for antitrust law as federal judge rules that Google is a monopolist in case brought by the Trump DOJ, continued by the Biden DOJ, and now pursued by the new Trump DOJ. Same with the current antitrust suit against Meta. So Google loses another antitrust suit. It's a monopolist of the software used by publishers to manage online ads, as well as the exchanges used to buy and sell online ads. So what do you guys think about this? I mean,
finally,
if Google's always been, I mean, it's been obvious that it's been a monopoly, right? So if you're going to have laws against monopolies, like, of course, this is a monopoly.
Well, I mean, Rockefeller got charged as being a monopoly, and then they broke it up, and then he had more power than ever.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid that's going to happen again. So like, oh yeah, it's a monopoly. Break it up, and now whoever's managing it, Alphabet now, gets even more power. I don't know how that would work, but I don't doubt they won't try.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when they bought DoubleClick and picked up YouTube, they were basically setting the foundation for what would be a fantastic monopoly of the entire digital ad space. And so you have to probably take a look at
the monopoly of the entire internet in a lot of ways, because most people use Google search, and obviously I've pointed out on different things like how corrupt and how biased the algorithms are and how much they can manipulate and push propaganda through those algorithms, especially with everybody's data.
Honestly, the only threat to Google's reign is probably OpenAI and ChatGPT kind of eroding this idea of like, I go to Google with my questions. No, now I go to OpenAI with different questions.
Yes and no, because Google's got its own.
Like Perplexity. I think Perplexity's
got Gemini.
They've got Gemini now, yeah. So, but Perplexity is almost like a search engine that is like built for the AI age, where you can kind of go and you can put your question in, it'll just give you the answer, but you can also pick which model. Like, do I want to use Gemini's woke ES model, or do I want to use this open source model, or do I want to use OpenAI? Do I want to use ChatGPT? Do I want to use Claude? Right? You can like pick which model you want, which I like. I don't want to use Gemini.
The biggest challenge.
I don't want Google's biases and manipulation, social engineering in my data.
Yeah, personally. The biggest challenge for that is all of those models are being trained on data, and the question is the data correct, accurate, or is it incorrect? And now we know Google's feeding slanting it very heavily, so we can just rule that one out. But the other ones are trying to do correct, let's say.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're necessarily getting the right answers.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no, perfect thing. Maybe, for certain questions, I use certain models. For other questions, I use other models. But you kind of still have to do your due diligence, do your research.
Never give up your own human discernment.
Yeah, exactly.
Blockchain holds the allows us to kind of keep our data a little better and allow and accept what is released or not released. Because a lot of the ways that Google and Facebook, they take our data is like, some would say unethical.
I think it's unethical, yeah.
I don't know if you guys have heard
the way it's sold and packaged. But what the most insidious thing is the manipulation of knowing everything about you and knowing how can I manipulate you. And there's, Dr. Robert Epstein from the Tech Watch Foundation has pointed out a lot of this stuff. Like, they know what your preferences are. They know what issues bother you. They know more about you than you know about yourself. And if they want to move the needle in an election, they know exactly what ads to show you, exactly what search results and shit to push to the top of your individualized search, which is crazy. That's what they do.
So here's an interesting.
Well, even like just having your cell phone device out, and it's like not someone's not on the other side listening in on your conversation, or they might be. I don't know, but essentially, it's taking keywords and it's keeping it in a database to where it's collecting it, and it's kind of targeting what ads they're going to send your way or what your interests are.
No doubt.
Yeah, that is creepy, because I know the wife and I will be talking about stuff, and we'll mention something, and
you'll see
the next thing is it's an ad for it.
Yeah.
But then one of the guys I like to listen to on podcasts always brought up was like, all right, well, what if I manipulated you into losing 50 pounds and getting ripped? Is that manipulation a good or bad thing? So it's like, okay, yeah, sometimes you want to manipulate people into doing things that are better for themselves.
Yeah.
Then it becomes down to who decides what is better for the person. I get that, but at the same time,
kind of playing God in a way, though, in a lot of ways.
Right. But I mean, if we're friends, and if you were 400 pounds and I manipulated you to get down to 200, I mean, I don't think anyone could say that was a bad thing.
Yeah. No. I mean, but that is like the ends justify the means argument, which is what Google is coming from. They're like, hey, these peasants are too stupid. We're going to manipulate them because we think Kamala Harris is a better president and Donald Trump's a
right. I agree.
Right. Like, that's the logic that they're doing.
No, I agree. That's where
SJWs and
that's
sitting
where
there.
The anger comes from. But I remember reading an old British story where it was a guy that was like 300 pounds. And his best friend just kept calling him a fat ass for months. The guy got tired of it and lost weight.
Yeah. That's funny. Well, that's interesting philosophical questions. Why don't we move along to the next story here, Paul?
I guess one thing on this topic I'd love to get your guys' take on is like, I do feel like they do have to break up like Google Cloud. I mean, the infrastructure of the internet is basically run on Google Cloud.
It's definitely a major centralized point of failure, and they have too much power, which is what, what's been happening in the past couple election cycles is a lot of people don't know how many votes they can shift with what they do. And they've been doing it, right? Like, they've been trying to swing elections, and like, that's, illegal campaign contributions. I think there should be billions of dollars of fines, because people give billions of dollars for political campaigns. Like, they raise huge war chests, right? So like, what is the value of being able to move 1 million votes in a swing state, right? Like, these are the types of things when some swing states are changed and moved by 40 to 50,000 votes. Well, Google has the data on everybody that uses their browser. They have profiles. They know every search you've ever made. They know every interest. They know how long you're, looking on a fucking page. They read your fucking emails with AI or whatever to see, so they have a profile on you. And, if they want to move, it's like Zuckerberg said this, I think, once, where it's like, if I want to sell 10,000 white shirts on a Sunday in fucking whatever state, like, I can do it, right? Like, because he just knows you've got all this data. I mean, that's a lot of power, right? And that's,
Right, but what he was saying too before is anytime you set up rules, people are going to immediately try and game the system. I mean, that's kind of what you do as a business is you try and figure out what's the lay of the land and how can I, sell a product or sell a service? How can I make sure I beat my competitors? How do I win the game? And that's just going to be human nature and around forever. So we got to figure out how to deal with that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, if you're an ad company, yet you're swinging elections, giving illegal campaign contributions, like, you're abusing your monopolistic power. And that's what Google's been doing, right? Like there's evidence of it, and they've covered it up too. Like Robert Epstein has this whole thing on ephemeral experiences, right? Where like he's literally got people that are logged into their Google accounts, and like, if there's an election, like the day of an election, they'll show a reminder to the people that they want to target that are on one side of the aisle, right? But then there's no record of that experience ever occurring, but people actually capture it because they're recording their screens, right? So these are the little fucking games and things, they're levers that are being manipulated and used, right? By probably one of the most powerful companies that's ever existed at this point, right? Like Google is an insanely powerful company, and what was their motto was like, don't be evil. And like, then they kind of like changed it. Like they took that out of the mission statement, right? Cause I mean, I can argue that some of the stuff that they've been doing, that's evil, right? Like that is literally evil, unethical behavior.
I mean, the entire business model of a drug dealer is you give something away for free and then eventually they have to pay for it. And if you look at like YouTube and, a lot of Google's products, and I'm a fan of YouTube. Like I think they have some great products, but like, they gave stuff away for free until a lot of people started using it. And then they just sort of like start bringing in ads, start monetizing off of that and monetizing off of your data in a way that's like pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I think
to my knowledge, YouTube has been a massive loss for years to try and build up the network. And so like, all right, now they need to try to recover some of their investments and their money on that. So they need to start putting out ads so they can get paid for it.
It's now profitable, so that they could technically take YouTube and basically like siphon it off as its own business, and it would be able to stand on its own legs. Like
they've got their subscribers now, and they've got the ads, and I just can't stand the censorship and all the bullshit. Like we're on X now. Like this is our main place where we broadcast and we do all of our stuff. I told Paul, Paul obviously cares because he wants to monetize this channel eventually and do all this stuff. But this isn't like my main, business. Like I've got this is more for fun and because I care and I want to, educate and talk about these things. And
oh, you like the sound of your own voice. Don't lie.
I think you like the sound of my voice, Kyle. It's not bad, but no, I mean, it's a commitment, right? But, YouTube, like we had, I think it was Efrat Fenningson on a Cypherpunk podcast, and like we talked about COVID and we talked about the initial Hamas attack in Israel, and she was just like, hey, I was part of the IDF, I worked on that border there, and like I was actually stationed there when I like 20-30 years ago or 15 years ago, however long, and like it's crazy that they were able to just get across that border undetected, because like when I was there, like if a frog crossed that border, like everybody would know about it, right? So she just raised some interesting points, and hey, this is interesting, and like she was talking about COVID and she had opinions. I don't know if I didn't, even if I didn't agree with all of her opinions, right? Like I have my own opinions, but like I agree with a lot of her opinions, and like they like immediately like not demonetize because we didn't even monetize it, but they shadow banned us and did all this bullshit and sent us all this stuff where we're like, oh, we're taking your video down. I'm just like, fuck you guys, fuck you. That's like totally un-American, bullshit. And I'd rather build this channel, build all this stuff on Rumble, on X, on other platforms. And Paul still puts it on all those platforms. But like me personally, I could give a rat's ass. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah,
now,
but
at the same time, let me finish this point, and then you can hop in.
Think what?
Does Google do good things? Do they do good? Absolutely, right? Like, do they provide value to the world? Absolutely, right? But like, to those whose much power is given, much is expected, right? So like, should they be manipulating elections and gaslighting and doing all this behind the scenes social engineering bullshit? Absolutely not. Should they be censoring the fucking internet and censoring, obviously legitimate stories that have been true? And, are they the arbiter of what is true? Like the arbiter of misinformation and all this shit? No, they should not have that fucking power. Fuck that, right? So yes, they've done much. Yeah, I mean, YouTube is a great resource to learn, new skills, new ideas, new things. So I can't take that away from them. They provided a tremendous value to the world on that front. But like I said, to those who much is given, much is expected. And I think they've failed in a lot of ways.
Okay, but we now have competitors like Rumble and X, and it's that the quote from Batman: "You either die a hero, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain."
Yeah, I think that's literally what this is, right?
Right, exactly. So like, they started off good, and at a certain point, they switched over. Who knows when exactly that happened? But it did, because now there's being censorious of legitimate information.
Yeah. All right.
And another thing is, we also do want censorship to some extent. I don't want to see horrible scenes on YouTube. There are things I don't want to see there.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, right? Like,
I'm just saying,
chopping people's heads off, that the type of stuff. But like, there's got to be a way where people, adults, we're all fucking adults here. Like, I've seen graphic videos before. Like, you can just like not see that. You can say, I don't want to fucking see this, right? Like, that's the user making that decision, right? Like, I don't want to fucking. I mean,
in that regards, it's maybe you have to be 20 before you can get an internet account or something. That's what they did in Ender's Game. I don't know if any of you guys read that book. They had the internet.
Great book.
Yeah, but until you got to a certain age, you couldn't have a real account. So you get like a very like fenced-in, sheltered area.
Yeah.
Because you were a child. You weren't old enough and mature enough to deal with seeing all of these things and being bombarded with them.
No doubt. I mean, there's a strong evidence of that with social media and a lot of the deleterious effects, especially on youth. So, like, no doubt. But like, once you are an adult, like, you're an adult, like, you shouldn't be getting manipulated and socially engineered by these fucking platforms and all this stuff. Like, no, like, you should be able to make your own decisions. Okay, I don't like this. Maybe I disagree with it. I don't want to see it, right? Like, you can make that determination for yourself. And I think,
yeah, but then we get into echo chambers.
But that's a choice, right? Like, that's a choice. You choose. Like, I don't want to be in an echo chamber. Like, I'd rather have the choice. Like, hey, I want to absorb this content. Like, I want to see some stuff. Like, I actually have to search out. Like, when I go on X, I'm like, you can see different viewpoints and like look at different things and see, okay, like. Because I was trying to figure out this whole Kilmar Abrego fucking thing. I'm like, is he legitimately an MS-13 gang member? Is he or is he just like a good guy like that just got caught up in this Maryland father, right? Like, I'm like trying to see, and like two sides are saying like the complete opposite thing, right? Where it's like, what the fuck is the truth here, right? And then I started looking at the court records and like the judges denying his bail, like, yes, he was MS-13. And then the argument was like, no, ignore that. That's real. Later on, they said this was bullshit. And then boom, now here's the fucking handwritten letter from the wife or the girlfriend or whatever that says he beat the shit out of me and keep him away from me and he regularly abuses me. And then boom, now here's the thing where he's caught with trafficking fucking 7 identified people with MS-13 gang members. Like, okay, like, this is really what's happening here.
Yeah, but you said the main problem. What is true?
Well, yeah, I mean, and you have to, do your research, do your due diligence, let new information comes to light. You got to be able to change your mind. You got to be able to take that into account, right? At first, I was kind of like more leaning towards like Glenn Greenwald, like, hey, like, we got to have due process. And then I thought about it more. I'm like, well, this person was in the courts already. This is like, we know he's an illegal alien. Like, he's going back to his home country. Like, the more I thought about it, I was like, he kind of had due process. He kind of had, and should he, some people will say, whether you're illegal or not, you should get all the same rights. Like, that's an opinion. I personally don't agree with that opinion. I think, like we said, like, there's human rights that you have, but as an American citizen, you have the Constitution, you have constitutional rights because you are a citizen of this republic, right? So I think there should be, and that might be, the Supreme Court might even disagree with me on that. I don't know, right? But like, personally, I believe that if you are a citizen of the United States, you should have a higher level of right than people who are not citizens or criminals coming here illegally, whatever, right? They should have some level of human right, but maybe it's not the same standard. That's my thought.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see what we got here. Oh, you just show another video of this guy.
I think you're right about that. I think because it wasn't there that Columbia student that was protesting, like pro-Palestine, that was in the process of getting his.
Yeah, she was on a visa.
You're right.
Yeah, you're talking about him, Mahmoud something.
I don't remember the name. I just remember somebody was doing a pro-Palestine.
That would
protest.
Be like an example of a certain level. Like, if you're here on that status, then you're on probation, essentially.
Yeah, what are you doing in America advocating for like some other country? It just blows my mind. I mean, that first part of it. The second part is like free speech, great. Like, say what you want. Then it was like, oh, he actually led the fucking takeover. He was one of the people like leading the takeover of this building. And you see the video and it's like, just like kids can't go to class because they barricaded all the doors and they're screaming at the police. It's like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, you can say what you want and you can like have free speech in a lot of ways, but obviously if you're a citizen, it's you have the full constitutional right. But if you're here as a guest, like, you can say it, but maybe we don't allow you to stay here anymore because you're not an American anyway, right? That's my thought. Sorry, Kyle, what did you want to say?
Oh, just echoing the similar sentiment. Like, yeah, you're here as a guest, and where you can you can't go advocating for American policies because you don't live here, you can't vote here, you can't sit here and advocate for these things in like an open protest. I mean, if they were protesting and they were just walking down the street with a sign, maybe a slap on the wrist is all I'm really asking for. But if they were barricading buildings and being a real nuisance,
I think that was the point, and I think that's why they said, hey, look, we're revoking your residency here. Like, you're not a citizen, so like, why are you taking over buildings, right? And the argument from the left is, oh, he's not really taking over the buildings, and he's just voicing the support and all this stuff. But like, when you actually watch that organization he was the head of and watched what they did, it was like, Motherfucker took over a whole building, barricaded out, busted the windows, busted the doors, screaming at police, like harassing, students, which is free speech. But if you're just talking, but when you're actively, violently preventing people from going to class and barricading buildings, I mean, I think that, destroying property, you've reached a whole nother level.
Yeah,
right?
you're getting more than a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's what's going on. Look, this guy's fantastic.
I'm more than happy to hear the congressman say they're all going to El Salvador. I think for Republicans, this just confirms what we have believed about the Democratic Party and why it currently has a 21% approval rating in Congress. Look where the energy in the Democratic Party is. It's around retrieving illegal aliens from El Salvador. It's around fighting for these college campuses that have been rife with anti-Semitism. It's around biological males who want to play in girls' sports. This is why they are losing to Donald Trump every day, because the energy that Democrats feel comes on all these issues that are fundamentally not where the American people are. First of all, I'm more than...
Yeah. I think he hits the nail on the head there right now, at least. This is where we're at. I mean, crazy times. Crazy times. All right, Paul, why don't you take us to the next take?
Someone had mentioned how, they wouldn't say anything in support of Lake and Riley, but this, guy everybody's fighting for.
Yeah, it's just craziness. It's
and Kevin Sorbo, I think is his name, the Dirty Jobs guy.
Mike Rowe.
Is it Mike Rowe? Okay, then I'm thinking of somebody else.
Kevin Sorbo was the old Hercules actor and other stuff.
Okay, so Kevin Sorbo said something along the lines, he was just trying to understand the situation. He said, apparently there is nuance to the story, but this guy was in the United States for like 14 years and never applied for a green card, right? So like he had gotten asylum, and throughout 14 years, he had just not, essentially he showed no regard for law, for the process. And yeah, like who are you going to protect? Who are you going to stand up for? Law-abiding citizens or people who are...
I mean, he probably couldn't get a green card because he was literally arrested multiple times with MS-13 gang members, and his bond was revoked and all this stuff.
They ended up saying that he got asylum because he was trying to escape the gangs.
That's why he got here originally. And then they asked him in the immigration courts, he had let slip that like, he wasn't scared to go back. And then he got a lawyer, and the lawyer was like, no, you have to say that if you go back, you fear for your life. And then he changes his tune and then said, I fear for my life again. Right, so
yeah, but he already had a record in the court that he didn't, so hopefully that didn't sway.
Yeah. Where are we at, Paul? Can we? I won't let them remove you from the voter rolls, baby. Rob Schneider, I love this one, classic.
Is that the guy?
No. Is that who you were talking about? Is that the take you were talking about, Paul?
No, but
it's talking about somebody else. I thought that was hilarious. All right, let's go back to, there was a Bitcoin take I wanted to go that was back all the way at the top of our stories. Oh, you went way back. Okay. I think you had it pulled up at one point. It was just kind of talking about...
Was it the one on the chart talking about how Bitcoin is becoming an energy neutral asset or something?
Yeah, it was kind of to talk about... the correlations of Bitcoin and why certain buyers buy Bitcoin. I just thought it was kind of interesting to think about because, people are always like, oh, why is Bitcoin doing this? Why is Bitcoin doing that?
Nope. Keep going.
No, don't worry about it.
Next.
It was like a line. It was a line chart. I think it was there. It is right there. That's the one I'm talking about. So, this is a key structural shift Luke Groman is calling out if Bitcoin is beginning to decorrelate from tech beta, NDX, and move more like a neutral reserve asset. That implies rotation in who is accumulating and why. It suggests sovereign or macro allocators, those who care less about speculative upside and more about systemic hedge characteristics, are stepping in. The energy linkage matters too. Bitcoin is priced globally in dollars but secured by energy. That makes it functionally different from both fiat and gold. It has production costs like gold, but is digital, portable, and censorship resistant like no other asset. If global trade continues to fragment and commodity-based FX regimes emerge, Petro Yuan, gold-linked rails, BRICS token, Bitcoin may begin behaving as an option on monetary reset. Watching this divergence from NDX is not just about price, it's about signal migration from risk asset to strategic collateral. So I thought this was interesting because people trade, like, depending on where you live in the world or who you are, what you are, like, you look at Bitcoin as a completely different thing. Like everyone's like looking at Bitcoin and it's like, for some people, it's like just this gamble thing. For some people, it's the hardest money to ever exist. Like, they want to store their wealth, their life in it. For certain traders, it's just a strategic allocation, right? For some people, it's, they need this to live, right? If you're like in Nigeria or another place and you're hyperinflating currency, whatever, like, you need this, right? But now they're saying also, like, as a trading similar to gold, it has these other characteristics, and people are starting to treat it as such. I just thought it was kind of interesting to talk about and bring up. What do you guys think about that?
Well, now that you have like the ETFs and companies using it as a reserve,
yeah.
I mean, of course, I think people are going to come around to it and start to understand it in a different way, because, like you said, it's more than just monetary value or like store of value.
It's more than just like a tech, like a risk on asset tech trade, right? Which is kind of what we're kind of seeing, this decorrelation there. I think that's what Luke Roman talks about. Luke Roman has tons of guys, a genius, got such great articles and takes on stuff. So I just thought it was interesting to point out.
And the programmability part of it, I don't think we have even tapped on the surface of that, like the ability to program it to do certain things without your middlemen.
Yeah, I personally think that the programmable asset of it is going to kind of what we switch to whenever we're trying to, like, say I buy, I don't know, a car part from a store and I buy it through a token. And then if I ever have an issue and I want to say, hey, I want to get a refund or get a new part, I can say I activate that part of the token and it goes to the smart contracts and I start going in negotiations with either, whatever automated systems they have or through a representative from that company as well. And so that's going to be the new way we track everything and actually have paper trails for everything.
It'll definitely autonomize like the way transactions are being made. You won't need a point of sale, or it might just be tap go.
Yeah,
supply chain directly like tied into the blockchain.
It's a new technology, and we have no idea what we're doing with it still.
Right.
It's still like
I think
two of the
Bitcoin is less programmable than other blockchains. It's more of like this digital collateral.
I'm thinking more like Ethereum and Binance.
You're thinking of like Ethereum and certain, smart contract platforms. And I think, there will be programmability in the future to do insurance contracts that,
Well, also, the Stacks protocol, STX, is supposed to bring programmability into Bitcoin. So maybe Bitcoin itself isn't the programmed thing, but other layers around it.
Yeah. No. I think that is definitely where you're going to have a lot of that innovation will be built on top of other layers of Bitcoin. It's just natively on other chains right now. You can kind of have that programmability now where you can say, hey, every month, at 5 p.m. send 100 USDT out of this wallet or whatever, right? To pay for the subscription or pay for this, right? So you can automate a lot of those things. But interesting rabbit hole to go down, but not quite what I'm looking at here.
Yeah. I think to go back to sort of the concept of volatility over the past couple of weeks, I mean, it's sort of blown me away that there was a period in which the S&P and NASDAQ was much more volatile than Bitcoin, which is sort of an interesting turn of the coin, because everyone has always said, Bitcoin is extremely volatile. It's, and so I'm curious to see how this continues to play out. But the interesting thing is when you look at sort of the S&P swinging, 5 percentage points and the mempool is basically empty, people are holding on. I think that's a really good sign that people start to see at least Bitcoin as sort of a store of value. Now, there's an argument down the line of the programmability of Bitcoin and how we can use it in different ways. But I think starting with the store of value is what I think is probably the first step of unlocking all the other ones.
I totally agree with that. I think that's the the key narrative, the key aspect, which it really is. I mean, like a money that cannot be debased, that the issuance schedule cannot be changed, the hard cap of supply, this discovery of absolute scarcity, I think is really the foundation, and then other things could be built on top of that. So no doubt. Here's a take from our friend Lawrence Lepard. Larry posted here a Raoul Paul chart, and I think we talked about this a little bit last time, but Raoul Paul's take and thesis is really that like Bitcoin price very closely lags behind and follows like global M2 money supply like being increased. So here you got a 12-week lead on that, and he's just, I don't know if he massaged. I think someone said he massages the chart a little bit. I don't know if that's true or not, but basically every time M2 money supply goes through the roof, Bitcoin price is on a lag of 3, 4, 5, 6 months, maybe whatever it may be. We'll follow that very closely. So basically saying like better labeling would say Bitcoin has shifted 12 weeks back. Look at the growth in global M2. which is now at $110,000 beat, if I am reading this correctly. Nice work, Raul. So very fascinating. Very fascinating take. So there's a little bit of alpha for you. Not financial advice, but there's a strong correlation there, it seems, based on the history, right? So,
I mean, both M2 money supply is increasing, but also hash rate. I think like you haven't seen a significant price move in Bitcoin, and yet people are continuing to add more miners to the mix. And so that shows you that at least people are willing to make a long-term bet that the price of Bitcoin could appreciate over time.
I think that's many of us who have been around for a lot of cycles, right? So I myself am adding a bunch of hash rate. So, I know many others who are as well.
Well, it's interesting because I think in the past, it's always, at least I've always looked at it as the hash rate follows the price, where it's like, price increases and people start to say, okay, now it makes sense for me to plug in a bunch of miners. But it's so weird now because it's like hash rate's increasing, but like Bitcoin's price isn't moving at all.
There's a correlation. The way I like to think about it is like both the things are like kind of connected, but like it's kind of like walking your dog on a leash down a street. Like you're walking in this direction and like the dog is like following you, but he's off to the side here a little bit. Sometimes he gets behind you, sometimes he gets in front of you. So there's this there's this definite correlation, but it's like sometimes he leads, sometimes I lead, right? But yeah, I will tell you this though, like if price goes, parabolic, then hash rate it'll signal to the market, hey, we need more security, we need more hash rate. There's more opportunity here to secure this network and be compensated for it. You will see more and more miners come online. That's a lagging effect. But yes, many are looking at previous cycles and looking at previous halving events and looking at the scarce monetary supply and looking at what's happening in the world and saying, I got to have more Bitcoin. I got to have more hash rate, right? Like I'm thinking that and I'm acting on it, right? So I know many others who are on this podcast often, like Bob or others like that for sure are as well. What's our next take here? Nick Carter. Let's see here. Awesome data. This is an interesting post by Alex Thorne. How big is the crypto lending market? No one has ever really known. Now we do. Based on reviews of public filings, bankruptcy documents, and voluntary. I can't read the rest of Alex's take, but Nick just pointed this out. Let's see here. Involuntary disclosures from active lenders. The combined CFI loan book size at year-end 2024 was $11.2 billion, down from 68% from the 2022 all-time high of $34.8 billion. So this is like kind of like leverage built up in the system, people borrowing and sort of lending here for crypto stuff. So, it's basically showing it.
When did the FTX thing explode? What year was that?
Was that 2022, 2021? 2022?
22, I think.
I think 22.
Probably 2022. Yeah, probably was the peak of all of that. Yeah, 2022. Yeah, that tells you right there, right? So.
Well, yeah, he was stupidly leveraged. A lot of a lot of people
many were. Yeah. So it kind of just shows you that right now there's like no leverage in the system, so it's kind of a very healthy early beginning market cycle.
More robust right now.
Yeah. So it says while DeFi is quite, so it's CFI means centralized finance and DeFi means decentralized finance, right? So like while DeFi is quite transparent, CFI lending is more opaque. When combined, though, the market is about $30 billion in outstanding loans. Yes, today DeFi is bigger than CFI, which is incredible that DeFi is bigger than CFI, right now, because, decentralized finance, though, is completely transparent. It's on chain. It's using smart contracts. It's using exactly what we talked about, right, to do lending protocols and different things, which I think is a fascinating thing, and it's only going to grow in the future, right? Because instead of having to do all this bullshit, you do all these documents and forms and talk to people and hey, you got to do this, and hey, we need a financial colonoscopy over here. You can take an asset you have like Bitcoin or wrap Bitcoin on Ethereum and just say, hey, I've got this asset and I want to borrow against it, and just totally automated, totally done mathematically, and you pay an APY to people who are willing to put their USDT stablecoins in a pool, get yield from that. So it's like connecting buyers and lenders and borrowers together in a totally decentralized, transparent way. I think it's beautiful, honestly. But go back to Nick's take on this.
What's the difference between CFI and TradFi?
CFI is a form of Trad. Like TradFi is kind of like CFI,
It's wild though that DeFi is bigger.
Yeah, at this point, because nobody after all the blowups and stuff, centralized finance is like, hey, we're not gonna, we're taking a step back. We're not gonna really get involved here. I mean, look at all the different blowups you can see.
Yeah, and also
Genesis blew up and BlockFi and
Silvergate 2.0 was also in full effect too.
Yeah, so the government also the past 4 years was also just totally putting their boot on the industry, or anybody who engaged with crypto products or crypto companies or whatever. Like you got debanked.
And the whole AI stuff uses a lot of the similar hardware, if not the same hardware, and it's showing a more stable return on investment. So it's probably soaking up all the investment right now.
Interesting. Let's go to the next take. Simply Bitcoin. So, fun fact, Ethereum is down 74% against Bitcoin since switching from proof of work to proof of stake in 2022. It's kind of hard to believe it, but that is true. I think that if we return to a bull market, I think Ethereum will outperform Bitcoin just because it's, there's less capital. It takes less money to come into, the platform or the asset to move the needle higher, right? It has a much smaller market cap, especially right now. But yeah, I mean, you can look at like long term. I think I obviously am biased because I was a Ethereum miner, so it's hard to say. But there's something.
You were an Ethereum miner.
I was no longer because they're now proof of stake. But there was something very, very
communal,
very basically tying the creation and production, the inflation of the new asset to a physical real world thing that's using real world electrons that has a real world cost, this cost of production, right? And I think they had something really powerful with the GPU mining community that they had built, that that network, like they lost that network by making the switch. Like now it's just so many users, so many people are gone now from that community. And I think really GPU mining is what built Ethereum into what it was. And now it's just like everybody has a copy pasta proof of stake chain that we can do 5 million transactions per second. Okay, well, we can do 8 million transactions per second. It's like you're getting a lot of these clones where there's not this beautiful cost of production, energy, community, optional. Anybody can just, you want to stake now, you got to have 64 ETH. I don't know too many people that can afford 64 ETH, right? Or 32 ETH or whatever the hell it is, yes, you can delegate a small portion to a pool, but you can't actually do it yourself. Whereas like there was something so powerful about being able to GPU mine, of like just going to Best Buy, getting a GPU and being like, oh, I made $2 worth of ETH today. And now I can just use that to do stuff and engage in the community and do transactions and, mess around on all of the, marketplaces and different things So I think they lost that and they destroyed their community in a lot of ways. And I think that's reflective here. Now, do I think Ethereum will be successful long term? I personally do believe that. I still think there's so much talent and developer talent and products like DeFi stuff built on there that they and all these other L2s. That's a whole other aspect of it too, is that they kind of cannibalize their some of their stuff because they move everything off of the layer 1 into all these other layer 2s, and that's
one thing I will say that what they did when they converted from proof of work to proof of stake was a proof of concept of they can still work on the engine while it's running. So yeah, they changed out the main mechanism in which it operated, but it didn't go down. It stayed consistent the entire time.
Feat of engineering for sure, no doubt.
So I mean, that's a new thing that's kind of novel for what's happening in this industry. Is you can make major overhauls to the system and still have it keep working without any real interruptions.
I mean, that's a testament to the Ethereum Foundation that this was very strategically planned out. There was many test nets. I mean, I remember watching. A common joke of Ethereum miners was like, they're never shipping mainnet because this is just it's always 2 years away. It's always 2 years away. The merge is never coming, right? So like, this is never happening. So like, that's why we just like, oh, they're full of shit. They're never going to do it. They just keep saying they're going to do it. And eventually they did ship it. To their credit, they made it work, and they shipped they changed the engine while the car was going 100 miles an hour down the highway, right? Yeah. So they did do it, and they did prove that, right? Like, but like you would never do that with Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is this like totally different thing. Like this whole argument of like, oh, Ethereum is super sound money now because we changed no, sound money doesn't fucking change. It has its characteristics and it sticks to its characteristics, and it isn't constantly changing and moving fast and breaking things, right? So I just think Ethereum itself doesn't have a narrative right now. Like, what is the narrative right now? I'm not sure what it is, right? I
mean, they were number 2, right? So they kind of had to roll the dice and be very adventurous at trying something new. And so I think they tried as best they could with proof of stake. But I think the drop, I mean, in price has to also be the fact that there's really not a lot of transactions. I mean, back in the day, I mean, NFTs were moving around like crazy, and like the volume is just sort of like dissipated on that space. And I don't think all of that is tied to just the transition over to proof of stake. I mean, maybe people have lost faith a little bit in Ethereum. I don't know.
I think it's a major part of it that they're underestimating, because miners, like myself included, like we were the ones participating in a lot of that stuff because we were like supporting the chain with our GPUs, with our actual hardware and power. And so like we would turn around and like you'd get ETH that's coming to your wallet, like you're mining ETH that's coming to your wallet, and it's like, oh, cool, there's this new fucking, there's this NFT platform that I'm going to go to now. And I've got the ETH sitting in my wallet for mining. I can see my computer's going, like, and you would turn around and you would spend that. Oh, there's a new project launching. Like there's an ICO. Oh, I'm going to invest in this. Maybe it's a scam. Maybe it's not. Maybe I make some money, right? Like people would do that, right? It's fun. People like to gamble, right? Then there's then there's DeFi stuff. Like, okay, I can swap some ETH and I can do a transaction and trade some of the ETH I just mined into Aave and stake it. Sure, I'm going to do some of that. Oh, I can swap some into USDT and I can put it in this pool and get 12% yield or whatever. I mean, like that was what the miners were doing in a lot of circumstances, right? Like, yes, you'd sell what you need to pay electricity and maybe to have a little profit or whatever, but or maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you would just have one or two computers and like you didn't care about it and you were just you'd make $100 over the course of a week with your rig or whatever, and you turn around and buy a fucking NFT with it, right? Like that's those users that were there. That was real. That was tangible. That was like a community of people that were not only supporting and participating in the network, but also using the network and building that. And now now it's like all that's gone. Now it's like there's a couple companies that have like all of the stake supply. Everyone just sends their coins to them, and then they run like a couple servers and. They've got all these nodes and that's it. Like
all on AWS.
Yeah, all on AWS, right? So like majority on AWS. Yeah, majority on, cloud stuff. Like people have those high-end servers at their house like they did when they had GPUs in their gaming rig or whatever. So yeah, I think they definitely lost something there. I think that
you're right. Maybe the affinity just sort of you lose it when it's just money that you're staking.
I was a part of it, man. I remember like I was in it. I was a part of it. I was talking to tons of people, and like that community just like disappears when you take it all away. It's like it's gone now.
So one of the equivalents maybe is Tim Pool's talking about the skateboarding industry has basically died in the United States because we don't manufacture the boards here anymore, and so the people from the manufacturing don't go out and try and show it to the kids or the parents that have kids that work there. They would get like free skateboards. They go out and build the community around it.
Yeah, there was a whole community around that. Like, I remember being a kid and it was like, oh, what kind of bearings do you have? Like, like, do they have more give to them? And they're like,
right, but
what kind of wheels do you have?
Well, these are the better wheels. It's booming over in China because that's where they manufacture them. So that's where the culture is around that. And so maybe it's something similar to the ETH stuff.
Yeah.
They don't have the people that are making it actually able to make it and play with it anymore.
Yeah.
They have to go to these other stakers, and it just kind of destroyed all of the
marketing that
culture around it.
The marketing of saying like, hey, like to all your buddies, like you got a GPU in your computer, you can just mine ETH with it. You press a couple buttons and you set up your little wallet and boom, boom, boom. Maybe it's like you watch a YouTube video for 20 minutes. Like, hey, you're in the game now. You're actually providing a service to this blockchain. Like you're burning power to support the security of the Ethereum network. Like there was something so powerful about that.
Yeah, maybe and it's kind of a weird analogy, but maybe it's a little bit like almost like a baby, right? Where it's like when you have your own sort of like mining setup, you're kind of like nurturing it, making sure everything's working, tweaking different things. Whereas like
telling everyone about it.
Telling everyone about it for sure.
Yeah.
Versus like if you're just sort of dropping, money in and staking it, that's it. That's like your relationship with the whole thing is like
you're not wrong at all. That's 100% what it is. Like going to Best Buy and like getting the new GPU for your computer, and then hey, I can mine more ETH with this, and like I can't even like remember how I don't even know how many people like I convinced to mine ETH with their computer like way back in the day. Like just telling them, my friends, hey, you got a gaming computer, just fucking you can mine ETH with this. Like helping them set it up, teaching them about it. Like there's something more profound to that proof of work community that unfortunately has been lost over the past couple of years. I mean, Bitcoin is the last Mohegan standing, but that's also been heavily commoditized. Like the deals I do, like $1 million deals, is like the average person can't participate that. The reason that when I started mining, like I wanted to mine Bitcoin, but like I couldn't because like I just didn't have money at the time, and I didn't have a 220 volt outlet for an ASIC because I think it was like the S9. I like had just kind of like moved away from GPUs to ASICs. So it was like, oh, fuck, I can't mine Bitcoin. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, there's this new project, that's smart contract platform called Ethereum. Like, oh, that sounds cool. Like, oh, but I can mine it with GPUs. So like I went to Best Buy and got GPUs because I was like, what was accessible to just a pleb like myself at the time, right? Like that's what I was able to access, and it didn't use 3,000 watts of power. I could put a couple GPUs in and plug it into a regular 110 volt outlet and run it in my room. Yeah, it got hot or whatever, but I was able to get in the game and be a part of that. And there's something very powerful about that. And I think, sadly, that's been lost, right? Like, that's been lost.
And all the other blockchains that have come along that give opportunity that take away from Ethereum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I guess if I were to take my hat off, I guess knowledge of the crypto space, and someone were to come to me and say, hey, here's this like small little contraption that'll mine ETH for you, in the backdrop, and like versus, hey, you just got to drop 32 ETH in this thing and wait. I think it's like a 2-year lockout or something like that.
Well, no, you can unlock and stuff now, but I mean, the reward is much less, like, but you've lost your marketing, you've lost your community, you've lost all this other stuff. There's all these trade-offs. But we're green. We're using, you know what I mean? Like, that's the whole argument. Is like, oh, it's green now, right? Like,
I guess maybe that's the problem. Is like you lose your community, and then you also just make it really hard for newcomers to be like, I can't really be a part of this.
Yeah.
Unless I give you X amount of dollars.
Yeah. I mean, there's like staking pools and stuff now, but it's not like, 3%, you're getting, what is it, 2.5, 3%? What's the, ask Grok what the staking annual yield is on ETH right now. It's less than 5%, I think.
You could probably go check Coinbase, because I think
Coinbase doesn't give you all of it, right? So like Coinbase, they take 30% or whatever if they're going to stake it for you, right? And there's all these middlemen involved now where it's like you can't run your own node, so you got to use a middleman, and most people are just using Coinbase. So the current staking yield is like between 2 to 7%. So you put $100 of ETH in, you'll get, so right now the estimated reward. So Coinbase reports an estimated reward rate of 2.09%. That's because they're taking some skin out of the game. But Coinmetrics, the nominal staking yield is around 3%. I mean, like, that's pretty bad and pretty like you're basically being incentivized to just take your ETH out of circulation, where it's like you're just locking it up. It's out of circulation. And nobody's using it. It's just staking, and there's no real energy security. Everybody's using like Lido and whatever, and it's like this whole centralized thing where like everyone's just running AWS servers. I mean, Lido is probably running AWS servers in the background or whatever, right? And it's just like, whereas like when miners had it, like there was more blood in the network, right? Like they got to pay we got to pay electric. Like if you're a larger scale miner, even if you have like 4 or 5 rigs, like that's a lot. That's a big electric bill. Like you need to sell some of it into USDT or whatever, and you need to be able to pay, your power bill, right? And like some of it's sold, and like that's a transaction, and then some of it's staked, and some of it's using to buy stuff, and people are sending it. It's like there's more blood in the system, but obviously I'm I'm very biased, so that's why I'm just giving you. I just remember the culture and the ethos of the Vive from 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017 even. It was just very different, and now it's like it's things have changed. It feels like, right? But that's just my 2 cents. Breaking: 20,000 additional IRS agents accept Trump administration's offer to resign.
Man, I'm gonna be on hold forever.
Yeah, that's a Kyle problem. All right, take us to the next one. Brian Armstrong. So, meanwhile, in China, quiet capital controls to maintain impression all is well. Beijing imposes restrictions on daily net equity sales by hedge funds and large retail investors. So again, more communist style control in China.
You say that, but we have switches that turn off on our stock market.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. I mean, the whole stock market should be running on a blockchain now. I mean, everything should be running 24/7. Stock should be on chain, total transparency. I mean, this is a whole other area for blockchains to be useful, right? Stock should be tokens, honestly, where you can actually see how many outstanding shares there are. You can see, is there insider trading occurring? Like, are people that, are they colluding together to manipulate markets? All that shit's public on a blockchain. You could have all that run on a public blockchain 24/7.
You gotta wonder why they won't put it on a blockchain.
Well, that's actually why I think they started Ravencoin. I think it was
yeah, you told me there's a CEO.
Overstock was so mad because P was getting shorted and they were colluding against him. He's like, I want to create, and Ravencoin is a platform that exists. It's a proof of work GPU mineable coin that can be mined. You can act like they have the blockchain itself is built around being able to create assets, which essentially could be like a company. You could have shares of it and you could trade it on the chain, and like you can send messages to people who own those shares. So it's kind of built to be almost like a stock brokerage, a stock exchange, essentially, right? Like you can have companies and assets and send stuff. Hasn't really fully caught on. I think some stuff might be tokenized and kind of put on there, but it's waiting in the wings. I think
there's no legal precedence around these things. Yeah. So that's why like a lot of these things aren't having any traction. I know there's been plenty of projects to put like titles for land or houses on blockchains.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of them have gone to court. And so
there's
no precedence.
There is T0, which is also loosely affiliated, I think, with Ravencoin and some of that stuff, where they're doing security. It's like a security token platform where they've got real estate and all these different things, and they're doing like actual security offerings, but using a blockchain to do that. I think it's like a private gated ecosystem that you have to be an accredited investor. You have to like do all this stuff to get in there. So, a lot of capital has not made its way to access those beyond those gates, but it does exist out there. And again, all of this is in its infancy. We are so early, right? Like we're so early to all these markets, to the Web3 ecosystem and crypto in general. It's like it's still like early 90s internet, like stuff has not been built yet. Stuff is coming. Like, it's just the floodgates are opening, I think, eventually, right? Even stablecoins are a huge use case and a huge friend of the Treasury right now, which needs buyers of government debt. Like stablecoins are the, like, again, I made the prediction, I think
only buyer, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're top 5 buyer right now is actual stablecoins. Like there's countries and then there's like Tether and Circle like up there, right? So, but like I made the prediction within 5 to 10 years, I think that, stablecoins are going to be the number one buyer of U.S. Treasuries to get U.S. dollars and put them on chain for people all over the world who want to buy, kind of bypass governments, and huge corporations and just go directly to the people, right? Brian Armstrong has a point here. He says, in the long run, economic freedom always wins over communism. I totally agree with that statement. Totally agree. What do you got next, Paul? We talked about this last time, I think.
I wanted to pull up this whistleblower who is now heading the IRS. I thought
that was a great one. Yeah. So this the whistleblower who basically said that they were burying all of the tax crimes that the Biden family committed or whatever. They made him the head. He was like a lower level guy. He's like, hey, I'm not gonna like lie about these crimes. Like, I'm not gonna just bury this thing. Like, this happened, and he went public. He whistleblowed on it. Like, yeah, there's fraud here, and now they made him the actual head of the IRS.
Shocking.
Yeah. Oh, here's another post from Pete Rizzo. He says, Justin, Brazilian Vice President Chief of Staff defends National Bitcoin Reserve proposal. Other countries are seriously considering it. Brazil cannot be left behind. So that's at Paul. You don't even need to open it, bro. You can just scroll right down. There's no point even opening the post. I was just going to touch on it really quickly, but really just the game theory of nation state adoption, of corporation adoption. There's also a take I had on the list that shows companies' holdings in Bitcoin over time. It was scroll up a little bit, Paul. I think it was close. There it is, right there. Quarterly Bitcoin holdings. So this is all from Pete Rizzo. He said that corporations bought over 95,000 Bitcoin in Q1, the most of any quarter ever. Buckle up. So here we are in 2025, and you wouldn't even think this, right, with the price and just kind of thinking where we're at. But like every quarter, corporations are buying more and more. Corporations are coming in. I don't think anything stops this train. Like people are underestimating like the systemic and fundamental things and groundwork that's being laid here. And I think that's what, people like myself are seeing this, right? And we're deploying hash rate, even though the price isn't in the short term, reflective of that, of that right now. Like margins are very compressed and squeezed, but, when the bottleneck occurs, when, the demand is so strong that the residual supply just kind of gets eaten, price can teleport to, you can have those huge green candles where it's like, we're at 85,000, we creep up to 110, and then all of a sudden the next day it's 150, right? So it's very hard for hash rate to follow that if you're not deployed ahead of time, right? So that's why we're deploying miners and doing stuff like that. But it's hard not to be that way when you're looking at fundamental metrics like this and saying, every quarter, more and more Bitcoin is being bought by a couple of companies. There's nation states coming in already this cycle saying that we're talking about strategic reserve bills and like we're going to add Bitcoin to the balance sheet, and the United States government as well, right? So I think there's a lot of game theory stuff at play here, and I think the fundamentals could not be more strong right now currently.
I think at a state level too. I think I was reading the other day that there's one state that's maybe one step away. I think
Arizona.
It's Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona.
And so that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll probably see this move from a state perspective, before the federal government moves on something like this. But it's really cool to see that stuff moving at a really fast pace.
We talked about it here in Florida a couple episodes ago. I mean, Samuel Arms, who's a good friend of mine, and he runs the Florida Business Blockchain Association. They were at the Capitol, and I think there was not a single no vote on the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Bill. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, whatever, everybody voted yes. So that's fantastic. I like. It's too bad we're not there in the whole United States, but yeah, I think this stuff that's starting to, the wheels are in motion. A lot of the buy pressure from these decisions and from these new things hasn't even hit the market yet. So I think systemically things are shaping up. If you keep looking at this with the quarterly Bitcoin holdings of companies, it's this train is leaving the station.
Yeah.
The question is when.
I mean, if you're a country, I guess, do you start just like mining subtly behind the scenes?
Well, I think like, Bhutan is. Can you pull up right now?
Bhutan is.
Say what percentage of how much Bitcoin does Bhutan have, and what percentage of their GDP is it? I think right now they've been mining in the background for years, and I think like now it's like they mine more Bitcoin than like their GDP or a percentage of the GDP or something crazy.
What do you think the chances of El Salvador starting to mine with nuclear power would be, given that the United States?
I think they're using volcano power. I think there's a race.
It's geothermal, and
I don't know if
fantastic.
I don't know if it's the government doing it or if they're allowing companies to come in and maybe taking their fee in Bitcoin for allowing that. I don't know. I have to look into that. So as of April 2025, Bhutan holds approximately 7,697 Bitcoin, valued at around 659.97 million. With a 2023 GDP of 2.9 billion, this represents about 22.8% of Bhutan's GDP, which is kind of wild, right? So like
insane.
That's a wild figure right there. But like Bhutan is a small country. Like there are bigger countries that are going to be getting into this game, and I think it's also going to be a geopolitical strategic tool, right? Because the Bitcoin blockchain is totally open, permissionless network that anybody can put miners online on, right? Like there's no permission. You don't have to ask permission. You just deploy, right? And if you're a country that wants to be settling trade as we move to a more multipolar world, eventually that block space is going to be constrained, right? Like if you want to make sure that you can't get censored, it's almost a national security risk that you have some level of hash rate inside your country, in your borders, to make sure that at some point, if you want to put a transaction on the network, you can get your transaction included in the block. Because in order to publish the block, you have to win the block reward. You have to use your miners, have to solve the cryptographic puzzle and win the right to publish that block to the blockchain for the next 10 minutes, right? So you publish the block, and then all the miners are competing to find the next block, right? So you're going to need some hash rate in your country, but I think this is a couple decades away of geopolitical strategy. But
yeah,
just an interesting thought.
Well, because the challenge is if you just buy it, right? The people can just look at on-chain movement and they can say, "Oh, wow, someone just moved a shit ton of Bitcoin," and whereas mining is a little more subtle. You can probably like accumulate without turning as many heads.
Yeah, no doubt. That's absolutely. But like, say you want to settle trade as a country, and you want to say you want to send a transaction to if the United States government wants to pay the Swedish government, right? But we've got enemies. Say for example, Lithuania and Czechoslovakia. They have 99% of all of the hash rate in the world, and they hate us. Like they're our enemies in a hypothetical 30-year future, right? Like we won't be able to send that transaction on this neutral network if you don't have some level of hash rate, right? Because if you have 5% of the hash rate, that means that roughly 1 out of every 20 blocks. So think about that. Every 10 minutes is a block. We're talking about roughly every 200 minutes or so, right? Like
2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah, you'll be able to get a transaction through, right? But you're going to probably need at least a level that's going to allow you to get a transaction out on a weekly basis, right? So you need to have some hash rate in your country. So it's a geopolitical thing. But yeah, these are just kind of like wargaming, I guess, is the way to think about it. Mila Joy. I don't know who Mila Joy is, but this was an interesting one. We'll go on to the next take here. The alleged Act Blue U.S. aid money laundering scheme. A grave accusation has emerged. The United States Agency for International Development is purportedly directing substantial funds to dubious foreign governments. These nations, in a calculated maneuver, are said to redirect the money back to the United States through the use of gift cards, channeling the funds to Act Blue, prominent democratic fundraising platform. Act Blue then allegedly allocates these resources to support Democratic political campaigns. If true, this represents a staggering breach of integrity and audacious fraud perpetrated on an immense scale. The implication is that foreign capital floods into the system, undergoes a superficial cleansing process, and is swiftly redirected to its orchestrators. This, in essence, is claimed to be the mechanism at work, a sophisticated and deliberate strategy to subvert transparency and accountability in political financing. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Nothing surprises me anymore. I mean, I think that some heads need to roll here. I mean, some people need to go to prison for a long time. I mean, this is exactly what's happening. They're laundering all this money. They're paying their family members through these NGOs. You've got these judges in DC, like literally they're ruling against the NGOs, and like their wife is like on an NGO getting like $7 million. Like this Lord Voldemort looking fucking dude who's I can't even remember his name, but he's in DC. He keeps getting all the Trump cases miraculously somehow from, it's supposed to be like a randomly who gets to assign, which judge gets to sign the case, but like he's statistically impossibly getting every single Trump case. And then like his wife and his daughter like each work on an NGO that is like like helping immigrants or whatever, helping illegal aliens. Like, the whole thing is just totally corrupt. I mean, that's why I'm saying some of these people just, that individual needs to be disbarred. I mean, like extreme conflict of interest there, I think, personally. What do you think, Kyle? I know you've got strong opinions on this, Kyle.
I really don't have anything in disagreement there. Like, I think they have to be impeached instead of disbarred, but that's what I'll have to say. It's clear that all of these people were set in place to try and grease the wheels to make everything go quietly so that no one's paying attention to it and there's no disturbance, so no one pays attention to it. But now that we're able to open the books a bit and track everything down, I want to see some prosecutions, like some justice.
We haven't seen anything yet.
Right. They can't just get away with it. There has to be justice.
There has to be
these
some
things.
accountability.
Exactly. I mean, maybe they're building cases. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Pam Bondi saying, "Oh, we're gonna sue the Maine government for not taking the boys out of the sports," cut their funding. Just all of the state federal funds to the Maine. Just cut it off because they're not acting in accordance with federal law.
It's got to be paid back too.
Right. So it's just like it feels like they're still being. It feels like the Trump administration is still using kid gloves. That's what it feels like. But I mean, we've got Dan Bongino on there, and he's red-blooded American patriot. So I'm hoping they're just brewing and getting everything, and then the hammer's going to come. But
it's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to reject once you've been attacked by, politically. It's like, do we want to continue this thing where like we just go after our political opponents? So when somebody gets in power, they go after their political opponent. It's like, but
it's
already
right. It's yes, they're their political opponents, but they're also lawbreakers.
Yeah,
it's not just that they're political opponents. They're
just hard to
breaking the law.
A lot of people don't see the difference. Like this is why Trump got elected, because people knew what they were doing. Right, like the Biden administration literally tried to like sue him. They had their little cronies in these little hyper Democrat areas to try to sue him in D.C. and New York City and fucking Fulton County, Georgia, wherever. Right, like the people saw through that. They knew it was total bullshit. Right, so like that's why he got elected. They're like, oh, he's a felon, this, that, and the other. It's like, no, you're a political opponent, and you went after your political opponent because he was beating you in the polls. Right.
Yeah, you changed the New York laws.
So you're changing laws.
So you could extend the statute of limitations, and then you never actually found him guilty of an underlying crime that he did.
It's crazy.
We were claiming was for the cover-up.
Yeah. I mean, but
it's like
that didn't work out for them because Trump is back in the White House. They tried to kill him.
Right. That's my point. Like all of these things
didn't work out for them. So
I don't want these people that are doing these schemes that are clearly breaking the law to keep being free to do it. I want them stopped so that they stop breaking laws.
Yeah.
I think it's tough because it's ultimately a multi-headed hydra, and a lot of these are tiny sort of nonprofits that are like, 10, 15 people, cousins of someone else. And so it's not like there's like one, maybe there is, and hopefully we can sort of go after that one organization that's maybe, doing most of the damage. But I remember in 2020, my parents got this letter from an organization. It was like a nonprofit called like Voter Information, and ultimately it was, some Democrat's cousin was running this nonprofit that was encouraging people to vote for the left while they tried to pose themselves as a non-biased educational resource.
Yeah, it's just like totally insane.
But it's a 6-person organization. So it's definitely like they're doing things that are, I would say, morally reprehensible. But I think that, the best thing that Trump can probably do is maybe persecute the biggest one and then show all of the other fraud that's going on so that we can get upset and we can, go to
I'm definitely upset. Well, I mean, like
right. Well, also I'm afraid of, swinging too far the other direction and overcorrection of justice. And now they're going after somebody that is completely unrelated and, might be innocent, but, but the train's going that direction and they get swept up in it.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much to go after. It's just insane. Like, paying millions to different media organizations and all this stuff is like that should be absolutely government should not be funding
fruits.
Government should not be funding Politico and funding the NPR and funding it's like, what does NPR stand for again?
National Public Radio.
National Public Radio. Like why? Like that's crazy. Like in America, we have the First Amendment. Like you should be free to say whatever you want, but taxpayers shouldn't be funding. Like it's such a conflict of interest to have taxpayer government funding media organizations. Like that just shouldn't be a thing. Like if your message and your narrative can't really exist in the free market of ideas, like it shouldn't fucking exist. Like that's the way I think about it. That's my thought. But there's that, and then there's just like Hillary Clinton's fucking daughter getting like $2 million salaries and all this millions of dollars, and she's supposed to feed people in Haiti, and it's like you do the math, and it's like the amount of meals that were fed, it was like $2,000 a meal per person, like or something crazy, $1,500, whatever it is. It's like she buying houses and cars and ridiculous. I mean, it's just
island for
yeah. It's like
America has been a victim of its own success that we created so much wealth in like the 50s and 60s and 70s, and that people just thought that we have infinite money, so we can do whatever we want, so we don't have to worry about prices. And as the fiat standard goes to its inevitable conclusion of collapse, people are realizing, oh no, we actually need to try and steward our money.
Yeah, trying to save the ship, like what Doge is doing.
Yeah, but with the people that are used to the gravy train, they don't want it to stop because they're getting fabulously wealthy.
They're screaming loudest. You can hear it.
Yeah.
And they're getting votes. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff has worked.
Exactly. They're buying votes.
I love the White House account on X. They're so good. Fixed it for you, New York Times. Oh, and by the way, Chris Van Hollen, he's not coming back. Senator meets with wrongly deported Maryland man in El Salvador. MS-13 illegal alien in El Salvador who's never coming back. Classic. Yeah, there he is. They're like, having a nice lunch, Meanwhile, this guy's like beating his wife and arrested multiple times and trafficking people on it who have no idea who they are. All sorts of crazy stuff.
Paul found the IRS article about the cover-up from the DOJ. Touch on that one.
Here is his actual wife speaking out. I don't know what she says.
Let's see it. Yeah.
And I know this is a sensitive question, but I have to ask it. You did take out a temporary order of protection against your husband in 2021. Were you in fear of your husband?
Oh shit! She doesn't know what to say.
Husband is alive. That's all I can say.
Oh my goodness!
And I'm not going to push on that.
You say my husband is alive?
My husband's alive.
My husband's breathing.
He's breathing. That was yikes.
We can give it to maybe there was a delay in the audio.
Right, for sure. But he asked, "Were you afraid of your husband?" And her response is,
My husband.
"He's breathing."
He's breathing.
That is not an answer to the question in any way.
She did not want to go down that rabbit hole of the her sworn affidavit of abuse. So, it's a shitty situation all the way around. But crazy that this is like taking over this a week's worth of political cycle.
I gotta get caught up. This is crazy. I feel like I've missed out on this.
What are they not going over? Isn't usually when there's a story like this, it's because something else is happening in the background that we should probably know about?
Well, I think this is a response to just like the Trump administration sending violent illegal aliens to El Salvador prison. So I think that was like what this was. But then the argument that was been going on in the left-leaning argument for the past couple of weeks has been like, he's just deporting people. He's making mistakes, right? And like, this was one of the mistakes. And then the more we find out about it, it's no, this wasn't really a mistake. This guy's a fucking gang-banging criminal who was totally illegal, totally, should not be in America.
Right. You look at what happened in El Salvador, right? They arrested all the gang members and overnight their crime rates dropped completely, right? So essentially what we're trying to do is replicate that. But in that process, you will sweep up a few people that may not belong in this boot camp, labor prison, right? And then you have to process those people. But what is the greater good to society, right? It's just to not do anything at all or to perhaps overreact a bit and then, correct it after the fact. And I think the Democrats, as we've seen, they don't want any action. Any action at all is considered, in their mind, white supremacy, racism, all these things that have really nothing to do with establishing law and order.
Yeah, I personally think if you're an American citizen, you should absolutely have every level of due process possible. But if you are a criminal illegal alien, maybe, you've got human rights, but it's a different standard, different bar. That's my personal
You're not going to get the same extent of processing. You'll get a due process, but it's not going to be as thorough as it would be if
I think that's probably how it should be.
Yeah, first thing you do, you figure out, are you a U.S. citizen or are you illegal? Are you an immigrant? Then that's going to be where, like, the first question of your workflow of what your process is.
I think if you're a legal resident, maybe you get more, right? Like you pretty much get what an American citizen gets. If you're not a criminal, you haven't committed crime, you're here. But if you're a criminal illegal alien who's not here legally, it's a different thing. Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. The first thing is, are you a U.S. citizen or are you here illegally? Are you a legal resident? Are you, those are going to be your first things to check. And as soon as you figure that out, that's when you select the process.
I just, I love how we always get held to this really high standard, and okay, for good reason. But when you look at other places in the world, right, they never tell us about American citizens getting locked up in Mexico, right? We might never hear from them again, right? You don't hear about American citizens in China, right? Literally, guy got put in prison for 10 years because he removed a poster, right? And so this is what you're dealing with elsewhere in the world. But here in America, how dare you deport a gang member? Right? Like it's just
I think
all
that's
politicized.
Who made that argument on this podcast? I think that was the on the Rogan podcast. That was Dave Smith with the other guy.
Been Adolf Hitler.
No, it was Dave. Douglas Murray. That was a Douglas Murray argument. What you just said, kind of, Paul, where it's like, you know, where you're hearing the screams loudest is because you can scream here. Other places, your level of freedom is directly proportional to hearing all these cases and all the stuff that you're seeing in the media and whatnot, right? Like, it's an interesting argument.
And that podcast really opened my eyes because, you know, yes, he did get a lot of flack because he essentially was criticizing who Rogan is platforming, and that's not very free speech of him, right?
Yeah, I didn't like
he
that
should
either.
stay out of that. And he did come across a bit pompous.
Yeah, I didn't like that either.
But what I will say is he made some good points
He did.
with regards to how far this whole, you know, essentially the protest is saying Israel has no right to exist, right? And that's like, if that's your conclusion, like you can't work with that, right? If you're saying essentially that Israel, like it should be from sea to sea, whatever that slogan is, like essentially like we have to like completely eradicate Israel.
Wipe them from sea to,
yeah, like
river
that's
to the
not a
sea.
protest. That's a declaration of genocide.
That's what it is essentially. That's the mission statement of this organization.
That's obviously not founded on good intent, right? That's not
like
practicing free speech.
We have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They have like just remove the Jews from the river to the sea. Like we're dealing with different things here, right? It's like
right, and then you want the free speech protection, but you're inciting violence, right? So but I think that nuance was important because we've seen with DEI all this nonsense, anti-white rhetoric. Why? Essentially, it's this Marxist ideology where they want to flip the paradigm upside down. But in so doing, everybody starves, everybody dies, right? Yeah. But ultimately, I think what this has brought about is this understanding that, hey, this has gone too far. This is not constitutionally protected exercises that you're doing here. You're actually inciting violence. And they drew the line at Jews, which I think was kind of the last front, right? Like if that, as a victimized class all throughout society, right? If they're the ones that are being attacked now, it's like, okay, you got to fucking draw a line, right?
Well, there's a famous quote. I think it was like, first they came for these people and I did nothing. And then they came for these people and I did nothing. And then they came for the Jews and I did nothing. And then
like first they came for
then they came for me and nobody was left or something like that, you know?
Right.
But yeah.
Right. So that's now the West is like, yeah, if they can convince the rest of the world, like Douglas Murray said, there's only 15 million Jews, right? If 15 million of any other race dies, it's a travesty. But if 15 million Jews die, like that's it. That's the end of the story. Right. And so I'm okay, fair enough. But that doesn't mean you can't acknowledge that there is.
Oh no, I think
right?
absolutely.
And that's where the conversation is in. But. Exactly. But still, like protesting, essentially calling for genocide, that's not protected under free speech.
Yeah.
That's my fucking rant because I was hardcore about this whole Epstein Island stuff. I'm like, Pam Bondi, where the fuck are the clients, right? Like, I want this shit. You know,
where are these clients? I think we do need to see the client list. What's going on here? What's Kyle? You have the lowdown on this. What's going on with the client list, Kyle?
I have no idea. What?
Don't you do the taxes for most of the
What's going on with the client list? Is that coming out, Kyle?
I hope to God. I want to know who to stop associating with.
JP Morgan.
Oh my goodness! All right,
no, seriously,
what's our next take?
Actually, banking Epstein for.
Oh yeah, no, like, and they're like, oh, we had no idea. Yeah, bullshit.
I know. After he was found guilty in Florida under Pam Bondi, they continued to bank him. That's why it reeks to high heavens. But speaking of IRS and corruption, this was the one I was looking for earlier that you had pulled up. Really fun turn of events.
Gary Shapley, the IRS whistleblower who exposed the DOJ's cover-up of the criminal investigation of Hunter Biden, is now acting IRS commissioner. Your courage and professionalism will transform the IRS. Yeah, I love that. That's classic. And again, hopefully he does his job honorably, and nobody should be. We should not weaponize the justice system against political opponents, but no matter what side of the aisle you're on. But also, we shouldn't be covering up for them either, right? So, that's they were in power at the time. They were trying to cover up their own tracks. I mean, that's just not, that's a corrupt abuse of power. All right, let's see here. We got any final ones to close out?
Just on that topic, they're covering up their own tracks, but then they're throwing the book at working class people, right? Here's a little clip. Just Actually,
are you serious? Over 1,000 workers, including 5,000 IRS employees, owe 1.5 billion in back taxes. Wow! Doesn't the government like take its own money out at the source when they're paying their own employees? I mean, how can they have back taxes? I don't know. I just think I say we do massive tax forgiveness for all of them and for everybody. Get rid of the IRS completely, and 10% tariffs across the board. That's the new fucking income for the government. And if you can't make that work, you should fucking have less employees and less power, right? Like, that's just what it is. That's what I think. That's my personal take.
Do you think there might be a bet on Polymarket for whether or not Trump will end the IRS or the Fed?
I don't know. I'm sure there probably is. There probably is.
Probably a
definitely
bet, yeah.
IRS. Yeah. There's.
Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah. They got to have the revenue coming in. I mean, I think they're kind of feeling out the tariffs right now to see like how much revenue is actually going to come in from that, and like. You know,
I'm just afraid that all they're going to do is throw in tariffs and not touch the income tax.
Yeah,
we're just going to get worst of both worlds.
So they're saying, well, it might already be at 100 days. Oh, 100 days is 9 days from now. So yeah, it probably won't go through because I think they're still debating the congressional budget bill. But
I mean, one thing I will say is we need to get rid of tax and Social Security wages because it
doesn't make any sense.
It's taxing it twice. You got taxes
crazy.
In your paycheck when they pulled it out, and you're getting taxed again.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it. But it might be somewhere. It might be under one of these things.
Yeah.
U.S.-China trade deal before June. 41% chance. That's interesting. You can actually this is actually so interesting to go to like just look at the page to like just see what the likelihood of certain outcomes are. So Trump-Ukraine mineral deal signed before May, 47% chance. I'd buy that one. I heard some reports recently that that was going to be signed by next Thursday. I saw some stuff. So maybe that'd be a good bet. You get a little bit better odds than a coin. There's only a 47% chance. So if you buy yes, you might make a little bit of money.
I think Polymarket's just outside of the United States, right?
I think they made it legal now, didn't they? I mean, the fact that we even have to debate whether it's legal for people to do what the fuck they want with their own money is asinine and ridiculous. Where adults should be able to do whatever the fuck they want with their money. But that being said, I think there was some legislation saying that it's fine, but I don't know.
And if you can bet on sports teams and do
you can't fucking
draft.
The whole thing is ridiculous that the government is involved in that at all. Totally ridiculous.
So it says Polymarket is not legal for U.S. citizens.
This is bullshit. I mean, total bullshit. Totally unacceptable. I mean, crazy.
Right. What the?
I'm gonna run for president and launch my candidacy. Make Polymarket legal.
It's hilarious. We're all Americans, and yet we are restricted from.
How do we accept
so many different things?
Insane. I mean, like what fucking right do you have
to
tell me? What the fucking right do you have to tell me what I can do with my own, that I can't fucking bet on the next president of South Korea? I mean,
yeah. So one thing,
but I can go and buy a government scratch off and floor Powerball lottery or whatever.
Glenn Beck pointed out and said this like a couple of years ago is something you don't hear in America anymore. Is it's a free country.
Yeah, it's a fucking free country. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, but you don't hear that anymore. I remember hearing that growing up all the time. Like, go ahead, it's a free country.
Yeah,
I don't hear that at all.
It's a good point. I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah,
haven't heard that in a while. It's been some years.
The CFTC is
feel like it.
Looks like
it doesn't.
That ruling.
Well, the Jerome Powell's interesting, 21%, higher than I thought it'd be.
Where do you see this?
Middle.
Fed decision in May.
Will Trump remove Jerome Powell?
Will Trump remove Jerome Powell? I don't think he will. I think he's just.
I don't think either. I think 21%.
Yeah, I think it's a little high. Yeah, it's a little high. Let's see what's
been a while since we've checked the Doge tracker.
What's going on with the Doge tracker today? Let's see here. We're up to 148 billion, 149 billion. 150 billion. All right. We're over 150
Didn't Elon
billion.
say reduce how much he thought he was going to be able to save?
Well, the goal was
2 trillion.
2 trillion, yeah. So I think if they hit 1 trillion, that's insane. But I don't know if he seems to think he can hit 2 trillion. I think the expectation for him, or what Howard Lutnick said, was like 1 trillion. But he's like, I'm going to get 2. So, Elon, I mean.
Right, but I thought he walked back how much he was going to be able to save.
I didn't hear that recently. Did you see that?
I saw a post about it. I wasn't sure if someone's trying to downplay.
Maybe someone's just downplaying because they don't think he can save as much. But
the guy went on air and admitted that if he were to reveal the extent of the corruption, that they would kill him. And I think that's where this stopped. Right.
No, I mean, it's still going on. Obviously, he's still finding stuff every day.
I understand. But if you want to really get to the root cause, they're going to put a bullet in your head. right? It's just this is why we go back to Bitcoin, right? When you have people who can essentially create money out of thin air, they can finance any campaign, any psyop, any hitman. You know,
I mean, indeed, that's what he said. He found there's all these places where they had money printers, and he said some comment about money printers being in these different departments and stuff.
No way.
Yeah,
they actually had their own money printers.
Look that up on like Rock. There was some comment about like money. It didn't really make sense, but it was.
Also, it says they have like 440 days left, but doesn't his Elon's government contract end in like May or June? Like he's only allowed to be there for like 120 days.
I don't know, but they could probably extend him if he wants to.
I heard he was leaving in the summer.
Yeah.
But we don't know for sure. I mean, we'll see.
Well, I mean,
once he gets the team set up, he should be fine.
Right. He might have just set it all up and let it go, and they've got the mission.
Yeah, he said Elon Musk claimed that multiple U.S. government departments have what he calls magic money computers that can issue payments without traditional oversight, effectively creating money out of thin air. Specifically, during a March 17, 2025 podcast with Senator Ted Cruz, Musk stated that his Department of Government Efficiency team identified 14 such systems across federal departments, including the Department of Treasury, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of State, and Department of Defense. He suggested these systems operate independently, lack coherence or accountability, and can send money anywhere, describing them as maybe the biggest scam of all time in a post on X. However, Musk's claims have been met with skepticism with some analysts like David Andolfato, suggesting he may be referring to poorly audited payment systems rather than literal money creation, while others note that the U.S. government's ability to issue currency is a function of its monetary system, not a secret scam. Yeah.
Right, but no, the Federal Reserve is supposed to issue the money, not random departments in the government.
Oh my goodness. I think that's
I wish you took a picture of one of those magic money computers.
It's probably just a computer screen that, like, you just send it wherever.
Running on old school DOS.
We know, hey, this is going to the Taliban. They said, just put it through. Because there's just no.
I hope it has like a lever to like officiate the transactions.
Yeah.
It's going on punch cards.
Paul, open up the Oregon AG targets Coinbase and SEC Echo case. Let's see that. That says like kind of like breaking news.
Yeah. I had that queued up.
Let's see. Oh, there it is. Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield, a Democrat, has apparently, big shocker there, has apparently informed Coinbase he plans to pick up where the SEC left off and pursue the exchange over charges of operating an unregistered securities exchange and broker-dealer. The state is also resurrecting the SEC's original claim that Coinbase's staking program involves the unregistered offer and sale of securities. The move comes just 2 months after the SEC dropped its case against Coinbase, citing the work of the new crypto task force and efforts at the federal level to provide a regulatory framework for crypto. Coinbase's chief legal officer, Ian Paul Grewal, says the lawsuit is meritless and the company will do whatever it is required to beat it. Yeah, I mean, this is what's happening over there in Oregon. Absolutely crazy. I'm not surprised though. I mean, like, yeah, they just like to jump on these like 90-10 issues and like take the side of the 10%, like 80-20 issues. Like, I'm going to take 12%.
So many of these things were also set up before the internet era, when it was a lot harder for people to do their research. Like if you wanted to know about a company, you have to go to a library and try and research them. So then if you would say, oh, I can go to the SEC listings, request a
disclosure.
Perspective.
Yeah, it's easy. Disclosure is literally transparently on chain everywhere. I mean, this is absurd. I mean,
right. I'm just saying all the laws about these things when it comes like, oh, they're offering an unregistered security. Well, yeah, but we can also now search these things.
Yeah, they want to be in
very
control.
easily.
It's power. They want to have power and control. They want to be able to micromanage what businesses do, what decisions people make. I mean, it's just total bullshit. It's literally anti-American, all this type of behavior. Like, let people make their own decisions. We're either adults or we're not. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Poly market not being able to be legal in the U.S. Get the fuck out of here. This fucking clown over here, what is this guy's name? This guy, this loser Democrat. I'm going to donate to his opponent in Oregon, whoever's running against this guy. I mean, these people are so stupid. Like Dan Rayfield, that's his name. What a clown.
Regarding this subject, Fred, one of the ex-users, says maybe Coinbase would have better karma if it didn't constantly steal from its own customers.
He's obviously not happy.
He's not
sorry,
happy.
Fred. I'm sorry you're not happy, Fred.
I do think it's funny how coincidentally, you can't withdraw funds whenever Bitcoin's pumping.
Well, I think it's more. So, yeah, I mean, I believe you can still sell your assets on the exchange, so you have it. But I think what happens is their servers get overloaded when there's like a lot of action happening. And I think they've gotten better at that over the years. Coinbase doesn't care whether you withdraw your funds or not. I mean, they make money off of you buying and selling. Like They'd rather have you.
Their spreads
do
are
your
crazy.
Yeah.
They're making money hand over fist.
Yeah, they're making money hand over fist. I mean, it's just what it is.
For sure. But if you're out there leveraging those funds, I don't know.
I don't understand why companies just can't like, all right, this is a very profitable thing that there's no risk to us. Just sit on your hands and collect fees.
That's what, yeah.
Like, why do you have to try and like, we can make more money by leveraging and potentially ruining everything?
Paul, you want to close out on the pale blue dot? That's one of my favorites. Many people probably haven't seen this.
Yeah, you showed this to me the other day, and it almost brought me to tears, man. It's been a while.
We'll close out. We'll close out the episode on this. Well, sometimes you just gotta like kick. Sometimes you just gotta touch grass, and you just gotta realize where we're at in the grand scheme of everything. And Paul was we were working late the other night. We were here till like 4 or 5 a.m. And I'm like, Paul, like I can't have these conversations anymore. Like, let's watch this. Just watch this. You play it.
Well,
play the audio. Let's play it.
I definitely will, but I do want to say, what we were talking about was issues that
it's just stuff happening in the world.
Are happening in the world that are very serious.
Yeah.
But when you zoom out, it just puts everything into perspective.
Yeah.
All these various villains and boogeymen and all these things going on doesn't discredit what's happening. But if everybody just realized, how precious this little blue dot is, and how everything we've ever experienced has all happened here all throughout human history, it should unite us. It should make us set aside all these fear-based, scarcity-based, like dumbass, behaviors to become a multiplanetary species, ideally.
The video is going to
cosmic.
Yeah, start this over. This is fantastic. This is the best. We'll close out with this, guys.
That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit? Yes. Settle? Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.
If that doesn't give you some perspective, I don't know what will. But every time I need to touch grass, I just kind of like watch that Carl Sagan video. It's just such a classic, such a great one. Guys, thanks so much for listening today. We'll be back next Wednesday at 4:30 EST. If you can, give us a like, a follow, whatever platform you're on. I think X is a follow, but any other platforms, we're happy to have you listen. And thanks so much for being here. And thanks, guys, for coming today. So
yeah.
it's a wrap.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Runway.